All right, we should be live. Let's just double check. Make sure that everything's good. Is the audio up? Audio looks up. That's connected. Let's just go pop out the chat. Oh, there's my voice again. I was working on it, I just hadn't gotten there yet. All right, we should be all set to go. It's chilly in this room. Hate it. Whew. But here we are, live with the anti-science live stream. I'm actually quite proud. I noticed that Jorge Physics, who's another science communicator on this app, he started doing kind of debate or conversation lives about this topic too. He's a physicist or former physicist, if you will, who works in industry now. He has a PhD in physics, serious physics. And he's really distraught by like the stuff that's been happening in our federal government and in some of our state governments for the same reasons that I am. So, I think it's good if we get more scientists talking about this kind of stuff. So, what is the call-in number? There's a URL in the background here that you can see. Literacy test, how's it going?
What's up? I just wanted to say that, well, the thing
Are you
is the
MAGA?
science, it's it's a little different. So
Are you
when
MAGA?
you look at,
Sorry, are
when
you
you look
MAGA?
at
Literacy test, are you
what
MAGA?
am I? What now?
Are
Oh
you
no,
MAGA?
I hate. Oh no, it's two sides of the same clipped coin. All right, that's I'm just what I'm. That's
Okay, if you're not
but
MAGA, then it doesn't seem like you're the kind of
well, no, I'm
person that I
still the
want to talk
okay.
to.
But here's the
So,
thing: I'm still the opposition. I'm just not. I'm just not MAGA. Like
okay,
I
did you
said,
vote for
it's two
Trump?
sides of the same clipped coin.
Did you vote
All
for
right.
Trump?
I hate Kamala. I hate Trump. I hate both of them.
Did you
They're
vote
both
for Trump?
horrible options. I did not vote at all. I did not
Okay,
because
bye-bye. Oh, actually, sorry, there's one more thing I have to pull up before we can continue. I was actually getting the vibe that he was like a third positionist, which would make him like a fascist or like a neo-Nazi, so I don't really want to talk to him anyway. Sorry, I just got to get my Video Ninja thing up. Come on. I don't know why my Tor browser's not popping up and connecting. There we go. All right, let's bring up another guest. Preston, how's it going?
Hey, man.
Are you MAGA?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Andy left. Okay. That's fine, I guess. Anti-science, huh? When's life begin? Yeah, so the human living organism, or a unique human living organism, forms first when the egg meets the sperm cell. Diggers, how's it going?
Hey, mate, how are you? So I'm a Aussie. I'd say I want Australia to be great again.
Okay, well, MAGA's Make America Great Again, so
Yo, what's up?
Isa, how's it going?
I'm good, bro. What about you?
I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA?
Wait, is MAGA make American great again?
Yep.
Is this the only topic you're talking about today?
Yep. It's like people can't read. He wasn't MAGA, he was MAGA. That's exactly it. Liberals believe you can be a unicorn. Is that science? Oh, I've never met somebody who believes that. James, if you want to come up and talk about it, we can talk about it. Oh, why can't you come up? Have you been banned too many times? That's really funny. Yeah, that's funny and unfortunate. All right, let's talk to Chomi. Chomi, how's it going?
How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah,
Do you mind if I ask you just a few quick just quick yes or no questions, just so I can get a feel for where you are?
go ahead.
And we can elaborate on any of these after we're done with the questions. I just want to ask. So, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you
Sometimes.
think that the vaccines we administer to infants are generally safe and effective?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
No.
Okay, great. And the last question is, do you think that MAGA is anti-science?
Not really.
Okay.
Because I mean, I met MAGA people who are what's it called, like, who definitely believe in science, and I also met MAGA people who are definitely like religious.
Oh, well, this isn't a religion thing, right? I mean, even controlling for religion, conservatives and MAGA especially tend to be
Oh yeah.
conservatives and, or sorry, even controlling for religion, Republicans and people who are MAGA generally are less likely to accept, for example, evolution, even after you control for evolution or control for religion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this isn't a religious thing. It's just a lack of trust in, the scientific method for some reason.
Mhm.
So you say that you don't think that MAGA is anti-science.
No,
Could you
not
give me
really.
any example of any, policy decisions put forward, say, by a MAGA politician or by Trump that is pro-science?
Definitely not. Like based off Trump or like any politician in particular, no. But I definitely met a lot of MAGA people who do believe in science.
What do
So
you make of the fact that, again, controlling for religion, even controlling for uh, political party, the MAGA people specifically. Oh, he left. Okay. All right, let's bring up another guest. Let's talk to Luke Noller. Luke, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA?
I mean, yeah, you can say that.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you the same three questions that I asked the other guy. Is that fair?
Yeah, of course.
So, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
No.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines we administer to children and infants are generally safe and effective?
Yes.
And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Yep.
Okay. Right. And so you would say that that you don't think MAGA is anti-science.
I wouldn't say so. I mean,
So do you think that it's pro-science? Do you think that it's just kind of neutral?
yeah, I think it's like in between. Like I haven't really met like a bunch of people from like connected to MAGA that are super anti-science.
I mean, so we can look at this kind of two different ways. On the one hand, we can look at like MAGA voters, right? And so, polls have been done. And what you'll find is that MAGA voters, Republicans more generally, are significantly less likely to think that scientists are honest than liberals are. And that's kind of suspicious. You also find that MAGA voters are significantly less likely to think that climate change is real, or that vaccines are
Yeah.
effective, or that evolution is real. And on the policy side, what we see is MAGA politicians, including Trump, are repeatedly destroying and discrediting our scientific institutions. So, I mean, if you put those two things together, it just seems like the voters don't trust science or scientists, don't believe in scientific results, and the politicians don't want to fund science. So what else would it be but anti-science?
Uh, honestly, that's a fair point. Can't lie. Can you like give me an example of like a policy that would be considered anti-science?
Yeah, I would say that cutting the NASA science directorate's funding in half is pretty anti-science.
Okay. Um, yeah, that's fair, man. Can't lie.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else
Have
you
a
want to
nice
talk
one.
about? All right, take care,
Nah.
Luke.
Bye.
By the way, you guys should make sure to like the live, do all those things that gets the live sent out. The more people we get in here, the better conversations we have, and the more people we're able to talk to. All right, let us talk to JV. JV, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Do you think that are you MAGA?
I'm a Republican. I wouldn't say I'm MAGA.
Did you vote for Trump?
I did,
And do you support, his policy actions?
generally.
Okay, so that's fair. Do you mind if I ask you the 3 questions that I asked the others?
Sure.
So, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
The main cause now.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines we administer to infants and children are generally safe and effective?
Generally, yes.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so, would you say then that MAGA is pro-science, neutral, or anti-science?
Well, I think it's difficult to say for an entire group, but I would say that I would agree that people that are more conservative tend to question information that's derived from the government, whether or not it's medical information, political information. I think they just tend to question things a little bit more. So if that same pretext applies to medicine, then I would say that they tend to question things a little bit more.
But we're not talking about the government. We're talking about like scientists, right? And most scientists
Well, we
don't
are.
work for the government.
We are, but it would be logical that the nexus would be the connection between, say mandated governmental things that are happening and the efficacy of certain medical treatments and vaccines and things like that that are being pushed down from the government. I would assume that that's more what we're talking about than just general medicine, right?
No, we're talking about science in general, not medicine, not even vaccines. We're talking about science in general.
All right.
Like,
So
for
so what is
example,
it that,
the example I gave the other guy, which is a pretty disturbing example, is the proposed budget the proposed 2026 budget by the Trump administration cuts the NASA's science directorate in half.
yeah,
Right?
no,
That has
I
nothing to do
heard.
with medicine.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And listen, there's arguments that can be made for and against, cutting and some of the budgetary decisions sometimes aren't great, right? And I think that if you look back from a historical perspective, you'll see, and maybe not to the same degree that you're mentioning now, but you'll see also that leftist or Democrat leaders have cut budgets in the past, and I just don't think it's to this level, right? So we can decide or have a discussion whether or not this amount of a cut is prudent, but I understand the point that you're trying to make, right? If you're cutting out something from a scientific budget, the normal connection would be that means you're anti-science. I don't know that connection is necessarily there just because of the cut.
Well, just to be clear, they're not actually cutting the NASA's entire budget nearly as much. It's going down a bit, but not very much. In fact, they're increasing funding to the exploration sector of the NASA budget. This is towards like building manned rovers or manned vehicles, for example. It's specifically the science directorate where the scientists work. There aren't as many scientists. There aren't people doing like pure research in the exploration division. And it's not just the science directorate of NASA. It's also the National Science Foundation, which is supposed to be an independent government agency that basically provides federal grants for scientific research. That's depending on which area of science you're looking at, mathematics, biology, physics, chemistry. You're seeing anywhere from like a 30 to a 70% cut. And then we can also look at cuts at the NIH, National Institute of Health. We can look at cuts for the CDC. We can look at cuts for like all across our federal scientific institutions.
No, I understand. And I was going to say that the problem, I think, and I'm glad you mentioned the NIH, is that when there is such a blatant dissemination of false information or highly questionable information, I think people that are critical thinkers hear that and then they start to question, hey, what else am I not being given, so sort of full transparency on that's being disseminated to the general populace, right? And the NIH, and I think it would be very difficult to argue that all of the information that was disseminated via the NIH to the American population was accurate, right? And it wasn't accurate. And we've had so much walk back on many of the things that were disseminated that it eroded the trust in the general
So I
population.
can think of one example, which was when Fauci said that that you shouldn't wear a mask. That's like the one example I can think of where that was probably bad
vaccines.
advice.
It was bad advice. And then listen, I spent
Just to
quite
be
a bit
clear,
of
you
time-
understand why he said that though, right?
I don't care. Because here's the thing. I know better than you. Do what I say, not what I do is not an acceptable explanation for why you're
No,
disseminating.
but do you understand why he said that?
Why he said what? That
you should, like, at the very, very beginning, why he said you shouldn't wear a mask.
I know there was a flip flop on wear them, don't wear them, wear them. Don't
Well, yeah.
wear
So
them.
at first, the direction was to don't wear a mask unless you're unless you're like work in the medical field, right? Do you know why that was the instruction?
I don't know the initial reason for that. No.
So the initial reason was we didn't have the production, we didn't have the availability of masks, and the fear was if Fauci said, the NIH said, yeah, everybody should be wearing a mask, which is what you should have been, then the medical staff wouldn't have had masks that they needed, because obviously the medical staff needed more. The fear was that we would run out, right?
But that's my point right there, right? So I know better than you, so I'm going to say something that's not true so that I don't create fear and panic.
Well,
right?
no, to be clear, the statement was you shouldn't wear a
that's
mask unless you're a medical provider, right?
That's problematic. And I'll just tell you, right? So let's just
wait,
walk
no,
down that
but
road for a moment.
Given the
if I may,
information they had, that was true.
Okay. Let me just say this, right? What type of masks were actually effective in preventing transmission?
So my understanding is actually anything that blocks airflow prevents transmission better than nothing.
Wrong. That's actually not accurate by medical standards.
I've seen the numerical analyses of what happens to the airflow when it's being blocked and how much it spreads, like, distance-wise. And it is just the case that if you're blocking airflow, then any particulates that you would have otherwise breathed out are more likely to be directed downward rather than outward.
If right, because almost anything it could freely pass through the virus, because it was so small, it could freely pass through almost.
The virus wasn't. The virus was attached to water droplets. It wasn't like the virus was floating freely through air.
I understand that, but this is by scientific admission, right? They will tell you that the virus was so small that the particulate matter containing the virus was able to freely pass through 98% of masks that people were wearing. Now, what it did help with is if you had the active virus, right, the COVID-19 virus, you had it, and you were coughing or sneezing, and you had the active virus, the sneeze and the particulate matter that was attached with a sneeze or a cough could be, or maybe.
Yeah, and that's why it was handy.
That was over your face, right? So
I mean, alternatively,
right?
if you had the virus but you didn't know it, and you just breathed on somebody, you could transmit it in principle, because if it was in your lungs, then it was in your lungs, whether you're coughing or sneezing. And by wearing a mask, even if you're you don't know that you have the virus yet, if you just caught it or whatever, by wearing a mask, it's going to direct your airflow downward rather than out.
Only if you're coughing and sneezing outwardly.
No, I mean, that happens with just normal breath, right? It's not just coughing and sneezing.
It may. No, it may.
No, I mean, it obviously will, right?
No.
If you have I mean, you can just put a cloth over your face. You can just put a cloth over your face, and you can just see how much air gets through it and how much air gets directed down.
But here's the thing: you can research this from a scientific perspective.
I have
the premise, which is the premise of this call, right, or this debate, right?
Well, no, the point is, I have, and more specifically, the scientists who worked on this are in the consensus amongst the scientists who worked on this agree with me, not with you.
Oh, first of all, Brett, wrong. The N95 mask is the only mask that was available to the general public and in small quantities that actually prevented the spread of
nobody's
the
talking
virus.
about prevention. We're talking about reducing, right?
Allow me to just lay out this premise, and then we can debate it, right?
Go
So
ahead.
this part is not subject to debate, right? It has to be an N95 or above actually prevented the spread, right? Based upon its construction, it being fit tested, right? There was a whole bunch of parameters assigned to the N95 mask, right? So you had to have either an N95 or above to actually prevent the spread, right? All these other things are if, woulda, shoulda, coulda, possibly, right? So you had to have an N95.
We're not talking about
above.
prevention. We're talking about reduction.
It had to be fit tested, okay? And then once it was moist, it was no good, not to be reused again and again and again and
So
again.
just
and
to be
then
clear, JV, I'm looking at a publication from Mayo Clinic, which is a highly respected medical organization, right? And they talk about medical masks, KN95 masks, N95 masks, and cloth masks.
Yep.
And they say specifically about cloth masks that cloth masks are intended to trap respiratory droplets released in the wearer talks, coughs, or sneezes. It also acts as a barrier to protect the wearer from breathing in droplets released by others. Like that's the intent. And we can talk about if you want to go find what the actual effectiveness of a cloth mask is. We can go look up the paper if you want.
And you can. And what you're going to find out that there was language relative to it may reduce, it can reduce, right? Rather than it will. Okay. So my point is, I'm just saying, we took something that
I just found this is super easy to find. Here's a paper studying it's entitled Effectiveness of Cloth Masks for Protection Against Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. So this came out in October 2020, so this is quite early. Cloth, and I'm just going to read the abstract really quick.
Yeah.
Cloth masks have been used in healthcare and community settings to protect the wearer from respiratory infections. The use of cloth masks during the coronavirus disease pandemic is under debate. The filtration effectiveness of cloth masks is generally lower than that of medical masks and respirators. However, cloth masks may provide some protection if well designed and used correctly. Multi-layer cloth masks designed to fit around the face and made of water-resistant fabric with a high number of threads and finer weave may provide reasonable protection. Until a cloth mask design is proven to be equally effective as a medical or N95 mask, wearing cloth masks should not be mandated for healthcare workers. In community settings, however, cloth masks may be used to prevent community spread of infections by sick or asymptomatically infected persons, and the public should be educated about the correct use. So what's your interpretation of that abstract?
Well, my interpretation is one. First is that the word may appeared several times, and I outlined it by saying may when you said may, just as exactly what I said prior to it. And if the efficacy for the use of those masks was such that you said initially, people, when you walk into a hospital, would have masks on everywhere, all the time, as a prophylaxis from potential exposure and or spread, right? We didn't do it. We don't do it in medical settings because
medical professionals do wear masks.
They do not wear masks in hospitals everywhere all the time. They don't do it. There's a reason they don't do it, because it's not prudent. Okay. And what happened was
that's not the question that's not the question under consideration. The question under consideration is, do masks reduce the risk of infection?
I'm laying out a general foundation of why the general public was frustrated with.
Well, no, but that's irrelevant. The scientific claim you made is that cloths do not reduce the risk of infection.
No. What I said was that there was language surrounding it that included words such as it may.
Do you think that cloths reduce the risk of infection, or do you think that they do not reduce the risk of infection?
I believe it's possible. I don't believe that it's a steadfast rule that it's going to reduce it. I believe it could possibly reduce it. Okay. Now the real question is, right? If you and I found a common ground.
So just to be clear, you do agree that cloth masks can be effective at reducing infection rates.
There's the possibility that could reduce it. Now the real question is this.
Okay, then we agree.
Understanding that it's not
that's what the medical community agrees with too.
Did the provisions that were set forth at that time mandating masks, was that worth the squeeze, right? That's
a political decision and is irrelevant to the topic here.
Because this also goes to the vaccine. It lends to the vaccine as well. Instead of saying to the general public, and this is where people's frustration lie, right? And I'm a critical thinker. I'm not one side or the other with this when it comes to medicine.
Yep, I'm sure.
Okay? I'm a critical thinker. What they should have said is, we have what's considered a medicinal application that may reduce the spread or transmission or severity of this virus. Okay. If you take it voluntarily, it can reduce the spread. It may reduce the spread. It may reduce the effects on you, particularly if you're older they thought initially younger, but that turned out not to be the case, right? And it's up to you whether or not you want to take it. That's the reality. But they didn't do that. What they said
Can I read
was,
something to you again?
what they said was, this is a vaccine. By the way, they had to redefine what the word vaccine was, because it wasn't a vaccine.
That seems like a complete pivot. Can I read you something about the cloth masks?
No, it's not a complete pivot. The problem is I'm explaining,
because we were talking about we were talking about masks, and you wanted to pivot to the vaccine.
Well, because they're part and parcel.
No, they're not. They're different things.
I'm telling you,
masks
they are different things.
Masks and vaccines are different things. I don't know.
From a debate perspective, they're different. But
just in general, they're different things. One is made of cloth, or fabric, and the other is like a liquid that you inject.
I'm articulating to you why the general public lost confidence in things that the government said. That's what I'm saying.
That's great, but to be clear, it's just not the case that masks are not effective at reducing spread. Can I read you another analysis?
Listen, there's going to be 100 of them. Okay, go ahead.
Actually, no, you're right. So this is a paper that was published in Clinical Microbiology Reviews. This was by half a dozen authors. It was published last year, entitled Masks and Respirators for Prevention of Respiratory Infections, a State of the Science Review. This narrative review and meta-analysis summarizes a broad evidence base on the benefits and also the practicalities, disbenefits, harms, and personal, sociocultural, and environmental impacts of masks and masking. Our synthesis of evidence from over 100 published reviews and selected primary studies, including reanalyzing contested meta-analyses of key clinical trials, produced 7 key findings. First, there is strong and consistent evidence for airborne transmission of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 and other respiratory pathogens. Second, masks are, if correctly and consistently worn, effective in reducing transmission of respiratory diseases and show a dose-response effect. Third, respirators are significantly more effective than medical or cloth masks. Fourth, mask mandates are, overall, effective in reducing community transmission of respiratory pathogens. Fifth, masks are important sociocultural symbols. Non-adherence to masking is sometimes linked to political and ideological beliefs and to widely circulated myths or disinformation. Sixth, while there is much evidence that masks are not generally harmful to the general population, masking may be relatively contraindicated in individuals with certain medical conditions who may require exemption. Furthermore, certain groups, notably deaf people, are disadvantaged when others are masked. Finally, there are risks to the environment from single-use masks and respirators. So, what do you make of that?
So I think first, I'd like to point out that if the effectiveness was so high, how come virtually the entire population was exposed to it? And they wore masks, mandated to wear masks. It was proliferated everywhere. Like, there's not a person that I know, other than people that got sick and just didn't test, but we're pretty certain that they got it too. Like, there's no one that I know, myself included, that did not get this virus, not once, but most people in most cases twice, right? So if we were mandated,
so which point are you responding to?
And we did social distancing, and we did all these things. My point that I'm responding to is they're talking about the overall effectiveness of wearing the masks. If it was so effective, how come everyone got it? If the 80% of the United States population was vaccinated and the entire population...
If modern medicine is so effective, how come people die when they're 78? That's what you're doing right now.
With very little exception, right, had the vaccine and wore masks, how come it proliferated through our entire populace then? How come?
So,
because the masks weren't really effective.
To be clear, what you're saying is, well, if modern medicine is so effective, why do people still die of cancer?
Well, it's the third leading cause of death in America is medical maltreatment. So I would say that there's a...
So can you actually address one of the points that I've made? One of the points in the abstract? Like which specific one are you addressing?
Well, I just told you. I said that it talked about the overall efficacy of wearing masks and its reduction in the spread of the disease, right?
So the protection factor...
I'm just saying, if that were the case, if it was so effective...
I mean, it is the case. That's like the scientific evidence suggests that it is the case, actually.
80% of the population took the vaccine, okay? And almost the entire population, as outlined in there, with medical exceptions for people with COPD and some other things, right? Wore masks and social distance and, stayed at home, right? We sheltered in place. We did all these things, and yet everyone got it. Everyone got the disease.
So is your claim that, it eventually made its way through a large chunk of the population, therefore... The methods that people used in the first 6 months weren't effective.
What I'm saying is that there's a problem. I like transparency. I'd rather them come out and say...
Why don't we just look at the data, right?
Well, because listen, because there's been a lot of manipulation of different things over time.
That's
right?
why they analyzed 100 different studies.
What happened to it's safe and effective, and it will prevent the spread and transmission of the disease.
So
when it didn't do that,
here's a
instead of saying
meta-analysis based on 12 primary studies.
Well, hold on a second. Just put a pin in that for 1 minute and stop jumping into the minutia of.
You mean stop jumping into the scientific data?
Well, no.
We're talking about science here. Shouldn't we be relying on the data, not on your vibes?
I am outlining to you some bold points for why people lost faith in the system, and you're jumping.
Yeah,
to
and it's based on vibes, right?
Okay, well,
it's not based on data. It's based on vibes.
When the top medical director for our country comes on there and says, if you take this vaccine, you will not be able to get this disease and you will not spread it. And
I don't actually think that he said that, by the way.
He did.
I'd love to see evidence of that.
You want to see evidence of Fauci saying the vaccine is safe and effective, and it prevents the spread. It will prevent the spread of the disease, and it will prevent you from getting the disease.
All right, let's actually take a look at exactly what he said. Oh, we don't have to watch me scroll through all of this if you don't want to.
In substance, that's absolutely what he said, and that's the frustration of the American population. And it was regurgitated through all of media channels. Like, just look up
during an interview on December 10th with Fauci, Fauci was asked, "Why do I have to keep wearing the mask after I get the vaccine?" And then Fauci says, "We're not sure at this point that the vaccine protects you against getting infected." That's Fauci said that on December 10th, which was like a month after the vaccine was created. Then he said, at another point, as stated on the CDC, it said at the same time, it was stated, "We're still learning how well COVID-19 vaccines keep people from spreading the disease. Early data shows that the vaccines may help keep people from spreading COVID-19, but we're learning more and more as more people get vaccinated." At one point, Fauci says that the vaccines are, quote, "very good, 94, 95% in protecting you against clinically recognizable disease and almost 100% in protecting you from severe disease." That is apparently the quote that goes around. But what's left out is we're talking about severe disease here, right? We're talking about clinically recognizable disease. We're not talking about just testing positive, right? Do you understand the distinction?
Hang on, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. When you minimize the app, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. When I jump over. But so what I'm finding out is oppositional information that's talking about how Fauci originally touted how this would not be spread once. Hold on.
Can you find me a direct quote, please?
Hold on a second. And then what they did is they walked it back and talked about percentages then, right? Then the percentages changed.
Can you find me a direct quote of him saying that if you get this, you will not be infected? Or something along those lines?
What he talks about is the percentage of potential exposure, and it's in the high 90s, and then it drops and drops.
So what's the quote? Can you find me the quote?
By the way, to the point where did the CDC, did it or did it not have to redefine what the term vaccine means?
I don't know, and it doesn't seem super relevant. My question is please don't pivot. Can you find me the quote? Can you find me the quote?
I'm gonna look it up, and while I look it up, you can tell me whether or not. You can look up, while I'm doing that, you can look up whether or not the CDC redefined the word vaccine because of the fact that it did not meet or adhere to any of the standards of what a normal vaccine would be. Hold on.
Go ahead. And we'll wait. What is tone policing? Tone policing is when you come and say, "Oh, I'm not MAGA, but I don't think that you should be this mean to all of those people."
Hey, how are you? So when I jump out of this app,
I can't hear a word you're saying. No.
Okay, so when I jump out, you can't hear me? Okay.
Nope.
So hold on, just give me 1 second then. Just bear with me. Hold on.
He has to write it down with his crayon. Be nice. Be nice. Anyway, y'all, while he's AFK, make sure to like the live. The more people that like the live, whether you're watching on YouTube or on TikTok, the better we do. And may as well read a super chat while we're here. From Nectu with the $2. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Yeah, do those things. JV, welcome back. Did you find the quote?
Yeah, I'm back. So what I found is that it has a multitude of CNBC interviews that he was on that it talks about him backtracking his original timeline from 2020 to 2021 about the overall efficacy and the chances.
What's the quote?
Of transmission. So the quote just talks in general about him saying that he had to walk back the original statements about how effective the vaccines would be.
Okay, so what's the original statements about how effective it was? That's the thing that we're hoping for, right? You're trying to find some time when he said, "Oh, it's going to be 100% effective." What's the actual quote?
Yeah. Hold on.
What did he actually say?
Yeah, the problem is it's given summaries, and then I have to try to scroll through and read this and jump back and forth in between. But it's publicly available. I mean, the general consensus is not in for debate of what he said originally.
I'm not asking for general consensus. I want to know what he actually said.
Well, then let me ask you so I don't have to jump back and forth. Do you believe that he just never claimed that these things were going to be extremely effective to the point that almost 100%?
Well, to be clear, the vaccines were extremely effective. They reduced chance of hospitalization by like a huge amount, and they reduced the chances of getting severe disease by like a huge amount. So that is like effective. That is extremely effective. Now the question is what did he say exactly?
Did they prevent transmission?
Rather than pivoting and just pivoting to kind of generalities, I want you to find the quote that you said definitely exists.
Well, I'm gonna have to jump off or go to my computer then.
That's fine. You can do that. We'll wait.
Are you gonna wait? But did you find that they redefined what?
Yeah, they changed one word. They changed it from immunity to protection.
Why?
Because it's more applicable to a broader range of things.
Because immunity and protection are two different things. Protection
people take immunity to be 100%, whereas we know that modern vaccines are not 100% effective.
Did you take it?
Yeah, of course I did.
Take the boosters?
I think I got 2.
Yeah, so it's going to be very difficult for you to be critical enough to look back and say, hey, was that really worth the squeeze, right? It sounds like you are. That you seems like you're okay with what you did.
I'm okay with getting
right?
Yeah, I didn't have any negative side effects. I don't know why I would have been opposed to getting a vaccine. I get flu vaccines on the regular.
You know, you're open to science, right? Obviously, you believe science.
Mm-hmm.
Are you concerned about any of the findings that are coming out now about the potential issues that people have with myocarditis and heart issues?
No, I've actually looked at those myself. Have you looked at them? Have you looked at the rate of myocarditis amongst people who are COVID positive as opposed to those who received the vaccine?
Well, I just saw one particular study.
Let me rephrase. Are you familiar with the rate of myocarditis amongst those who are unvaccinated compared with those who are vaccinated? Because it's like 50 times more likely to get myocarditis if you're unvaccinated than if you're vaccinated.
I'd love to see that stat.
I could pull it up for you if you wanted to. But would you, just to be clear,
I would be surprised.
have you,
listen, and again,
just to be clear,
I would love
because we did completely pivot. Do you agree now that the science is very consistent on the fact that even cloth masks provide a significant degree of protection?
I would not say significant. I would say that
I showed you a chart. Here's the chart again. What does this chart say?
I understand
this chart says that the protection factor of masks is of even like community masks is like 2 to 4 times. You're 2 to 4 times less likely to get to spread the disease and to get the disease if you're wearing a cloth mask than otherwise.
I understand that's what it says. I can see the chart.
Okay. So now you're so do you think that data is fake?
Well, no, what I'm saying is this. It's a critical question. If that data is accurate, and 80% of the population took the vaccine, and
what does this have to do with the vaccine?
Hold on. And
this
the entire country wore the masks, right?
Well, no, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Yeah, most Americans did in public places.
No, they didn't. I don't know where you were.
Where were they not wearing masks?
All over the place.
If you were where?
In public.
You couldn't get into certain places if you didn't have a mask on. Yeah, I mean that's
Hold on, we can just
that's
check this information. we can we can just check this
I mean, you
information.
lived it. You don't have to check it. I mean, if a person's
I
walking
lived
down
it.
the
See,
street,
this is what I mean by like anti-science. You don't care about the data. You're just worried about your own personal experience.
no. What I'm saying is, if the data is correct, then why would everyone get it?
Okay, so this is from 2021. I'm just going to read the headline for you. We can go find the study if you want. Half of U.S. adults don't wear masks when in close contact with non-household members.
Yeah, but did I think even Fauci said if you're within your own home, you're okay. It was the whole sheltering.
This was while you're in contact with non-household members.
In contact with non-household members.
Yes.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't social distancing okay if you were 6 feet or further?
No, you were still supposed to wear a mask.
All the time indoors.
No, this wasn't about indoors. This is just when you're in contact with non-household members.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember that. I don't remember that being a thing. But okay.
Oh well, yeah. So the data disagrees with your personal experience. I'm sorry.
And again, I'm not fighting it. I'm just saying it just seems to me as if, masks were being worn, right? And you're right, it is my personal experience. And I wore the mask, all right? I was compliant. I didn't have an issue with it, right? Because I understood it wasn't going to prevent it, but it may, right? So, it could help. So I'm going to wear it. And everyone that I knew wore it. And also everyone that I knew got it. And probably about half the people I know got the vaccine, right? So I just don't understand how its proliferation was so high if we had a vaccine and everyone got it then, right? Everyone didn't get it before, right? People didn't get it before.
To be clear, are you now agreeing that generally speaking, community masks, these are like pieces of cloth that you put over your face, were conferred a substantial degree of protection, and that...
I don't know about...
Okay, well, I showed you the chart already. Do you disagree with the chart?
Well, I disagree with the overall outcome.
I'm sorry, do you disagree with the data conferred by the chart?
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with the fact that wearing a mask could reduce it. I just don't know if everyone wore it, how did everyone get it then? Right? It doesn't make sense.
So
if there's
we can address that, but I need you to recognize that it's just true that even cloth masks reduce or confer a degree of protection.
Yeah.
That's just true.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
And we started out with that, but the premise was
you started out by saying that that's not true.
No. What I said is if it is true. If it is true, how did everyone?
No. At the beginning, you said that the scientific evidence is that it's not true, and when I showed you that it is true, now you're changing now you're contradicting yourself and saying, "Oh no, I never said that."
No. What I said was because I said that the particulate matter is so small it could freely pass in between, and then you talked about the droplets, and I said, "Okay, well that's true." Right, so I changed.
Okay, so I'm glad that we agree.
Again,
now the question is why did everybody get it? Well, I mean, it's still an infectious disease, right? And we know that the vaccine isn't going to doesn't prevent infection. What it does seem to do, this particular vaccine seems to reduce the severity of symptomatic disease, right? We know that people who are vaccinated were significantly less likely to get hospitalized as a result of a COVID infection than those who are not vaccinated. But even still, if this allows for the spread of the disease, especially, 4 years, 5 years even after kind of peak pandemic, nobody's really wearing masks anymore. I don't know when the last time somebody got a COVID booster was. So it's just not so surprising that of course it's going to spread. We just can handle it now because it's not as much a pandemic anymore as it is just an epidemic.
Okay.
I mean, like, everybody's gotten a cold before, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But most people don't die from colds.
Agreed.
Most people, in fact, don't die from the flu, even though most people have gotten the flu before. And that's because a lot of people get flu vaccines, right?
But wouldn't you agree that the way to
endemic, not epidemic, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't you agree that the proper way to present this to the public would have been to say that we have a therapeutic remedy that can or may reduce the effects, and it can or may reduce the spread, right? And it can or may reduce your ability to contract this, right? Wouldn't that have been a better way of doing it rather than to have to redefine?
No, I don't think so.
Because it didn't meet the actual level for what a vaccine.
No, I don't think that would have been the smart thing to do. Because the goal, this was a policy goal. Keep in mind, this was not a scientific claim. This is a policy goal. The policy goal was to ensure that as many people got the vaccine as possible to reduce the, the peak damage that the disease would cause to the United States. That was the policy goal. And keep in mind, this was, like all of this stuff about Fauci and all of this stuff, this happened under Trump, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's actually one of the things that to me was concerning because, at the time I lived in New York and you had the governor of New York step out and Nancy Pelosi said the same thing and they called it Trump's vaccine and Cuomo actually said that he would never get it. Right. And then you turned around and just several months later under a different administration.
Super cringe, I agree.
How it became mandated, then it was like, wait a minute, which is it? Is it good?
Yeah,
is it bad?
But just to be clear, no. So just to be clear, I think that it was actually a good thing to say that, yeah, you should get this because people should have gotten it. Because that means that, if you have more people who get it, you have more people protected. People should have worn masks because the more people who wear masks, you have the more people who are protected.
Right. Listen, and I think, generally speaking, I think we agree across with broad strokes. My issue with it was if they knew from an efficiency or an effective standpoint what it was really capable of doing, instead of just pushing it out there and being transparent with the public, what they said is, well, we know better. And even though it may...
When did they say, well, we know better?
Well, they said that they know better by keeping that from the public and saying...
By keeping what from the public?
Hold on.
Fauci explicitly said in December, yeah, we don't know how effective it is, but it seems like it's pretty effective.
Hold on, but all the talking heads on all the major news stations, probably with the exception of Fox, talked about, now it's famous, the Rachel Maddow. If you get it, the virus will not go anywhere else.
Okay, so are we talking about Rachel Maddow now, who is neither a scientist nor a politician?
No, but she was pushing the agenda set forth.
Okay, but that seems irrelevant, though, to the background and to the topic, the prompt of conversation, right?
But my initial point was I wanted to sort of outline why the general population lost trust in the federal government because these things were being pushed out, right? When all the news agencies, maybe except for one, are touting how this
I'm sorry, what does the federal government have to do with science?
Well, in this case, the mandates had to do with the federal government mandating, the
okay,
vaccine.
right. But that has nothing to do with general distrust in science, right?
Well, it does. It does when they knew earlier on that it was not going to be as effective, and they knew that it would need boosters, but they didn't talk about that.
Wait, hold on. I just read you a quote from Fauci saying, "Yeah, we actually don't know how effective it is. We don't know how effective it is, but we do know it's pretty effective."
So where did MSNBC, CNN, where did all these news
I don't know. I'm not in their newsroom. The point is we have direct quotes from Fauci, which, by the way, you have failed to produce the direct quote from Fauci saying otherwise. So I'm pretty sure you just kind of heard that from Fox and then, kind of vibed with it.
Did he pardon Fauci? Was Fauci pardoned?
I don't know, maybe. I didn't really pay attention.
Yeah.
I was living in Europe at the time.
So it's probably because there were certain things, and this is the frustration, right? And I understand, right? If you tell me, hey, we knew certain things, but we had to hold it back for the greater good, right? To make sure that everyone got vaccinated, to make sure that we would have a better result overall. So we held back some information because, listen, that's just what we did for the betterment of the American public, right? That's a lot of what happened.
I'm actually not even sure that that's what happened after the after the whole mask, besides the mask thing at the very beginning in March or April or whatever. I don't think that actually happened once.
Hang on one second. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was right. Yeah, he did pardon Fauci. So my thing is, if you didn't say anything that was incorrect or potentially damaging or potentially criminal, right, you wouldn't have to get pardoned.
Oh, so are you saying that, if you don't have anything, if you didn't do any crimes, what are you worried about? Just talk to the cops.
Yeah. No. This is very specific. This is
it's pretty. This is pretty obvious. Like the reason why Fauci was pardoned was because, Biden and his team knew that Fauci would be subject to a witch hunt if he wasn't, right? Like obviously, and the reason why this is obviously true is because you're suggesting that we should do a witch hunt right now. You're going after Fauci 5 years later.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't support that. I don't think that there would be any good
Do you
that would
think
come
that
of that.
generally Trump's administration and the MAGA base would want to just leave Fauci alone?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I have absolutely no idea whether or not, and I doubt very much so.
You have no idea.
No, I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because they would.
You know, after Fox News had like clips of him with devil horns, photoshopped on.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'll just tell you, they said the same thing about Hillary, and he didn't do anything. He did nothing. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything to Biden. Biden raided his house, and he hasn't done anything to Biden. So, I don't know. You could say that. I don't necessarily think that that's true, and I don't think that prosecuting him would be good. Listen, my concern, as was the concern for a lot of Americans, was that we weren't being given all the information because they thought better. Like we know.
Wait,
better.
hold on. So to be clear, is there any evidence that he actually that actually happened?
That what happened?
That that they held back information because they thought better. I mean, I'll grant you that perhaps that happened in March or April with regards to the masks, but after that, I don't think that happened, and I think that it's just a vibe that you have.
Well, did he say also too? Did he say in earlier statements? Well, one, that he made up the 6 foot distancing. He just made it up. Number one, right? He just said that. That I know, because that was in testimony. And then he also talked about.
I'm sorry. You think that he just made up the 6 foot distance thing?
He said it.
He said what? What did he say?
That they made it up. Well, Google it right now, because you're going to lose me if I have to go Google it.
Sure.
Just Google right now whether or not Fauci made up the 6 foot distance rule.
So, all right, let's see. I'm on. Is NPR trustworthy? Do we not like NPR?
No, it's fine.
Okay, where should I get my news from? Newsmax?
Listen, I don't. Whatever comes up is fine. Whatever comes up is fine.
So, all right. So NPR says, was 6 feet just a made-up number? After all, the World Health Organization only suggested 3 feet as a safety zone. A kind of weird and relatively ancient history lesson may offer up a clue. In the late 1800s, scientists asked people to rinse their mouths with bacteria. Blah 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 blah. And what happened? They saw bacteria landing on plates up to a distance of about 6 feet away. But if they waited longer, several hours, to collect the plates, allowing time for respiratory particles to drift around the room and settle, they saw bacteria landing on plates much farther away than 6 feet. So yeah, 6 feet is not a magic number for aborting airborne pathogens. It's not like if you go 1 inch further, you're suddenly in the danger zone. It's more like the speed limit, suggests Dr. Abrar Karan, an infectious disease fellow at Stanford University. There's no data to say 55 miles per hour is significantly safer than 56, but you have to have a cutoff that's reasonable. So, I mean, This article is quite a bit long. It just seems like 6 feet was regarded, at least from an old study, a very old study, that like bacteria will go roughly 6 feet and then it'll land.
Yeah.
Distance matters, but there's nothing magical about 6 feet, so you have to basically pick a number.
Right.
So what should he have done? How, you suggest social distancing. Somebody asks, oh well, how far should we stay apart? And then what are they supposed to say? Oh, we'll just pick any number. Like they just need to pick a number.
Yeah, but again,
so they picked a reasonable number that's not too far, that would prevent people from like interacting like at the grocery store, and a number that's not too close, that it wouldn't cause a spread of disease.
Right. That was just one of the things that he said that he admitted that he was
but
you're saying.
So to be clear, it doesn't sound like this was an example of people saying, "Oh, we know better and we're holding back information."
No, that isn't. But
okay, so can you give me an example of that?
So I'll give you an example. When he changed, well, why did he change from it's 90 whatever to it's 90 whatever, but it's 91 now with a booster? It's like, so it kept changing, right?
Yeah, because we collected more and more data. Also, you have to keep in mind that COVID was changing too. We know that we had like several different strains, right? So obviously the vaccine is going to be more effective against some than against others.
That was foreseeable, and they talked about how that was
yeah, but you can't. But like the old vaccine, you couldn't have known how COVID would change until after it changes, right?
Again, you're calling it a vaccine, but what other vaccines?
Yes, that's the word that we use for it.
We need 4 boosters for. What other vaccine needs 4 boosters?
We can look up vaccines that require boosters.
None that I've ever had in my life, right?
All right.
Maybe,
what vaccines are recommended for you? Let's look. Recommended vaccine schedule for adults. So, I think that we're looking at, well, Okay, hold on. I'm
Listen,
looking at which
I'll
ones
just
have
tell you, just
boosters.
to help you out. So I was in the military for a long time. I traveled around the world. I've
I'm
received
sure.
and I have no issues. I have no issues with vaccines or boosters. I'm just telling you that with a very limited exception, right? Very limited exception.
Vaccine boosters that children need are hepatitis A, hepatitis B, Haemophilus influenza type B, measles, mumps, rubella, tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis, varicella. And then as an adult, you may need Tdap every 10 years, shingles, pneumonia, varicella, and MMR. So you need boosters for all of these things.
Yeah, but hold on a second. You don't need them a month after you get it, and then another month after.
Yeah, different vaccines are different.
Years and years later.
Well, to be clear, just to be clear, there are vaccines that we give to children that are like separated by 3 months.
Well, first of all, not in Europe. In Europe, they don't even do it until they're at least
we're not in Europe.
Yeah, I know, and maybe.
But
we
why
should look to
why are we pivoting again? Have you found me the quote from Fauci saying, "Oh, it's super effective," that he then walked back on? Have you found me the quote on that?
Well, it's actually an MSNBC interview, and it was a.
Okay, so what did Fauci say? What was the quote?
The problem is I have to go back through and read an article.
So do a Control F.
Hold on, I'm sitting on my phone.
Phones have search functions.
Hold on. So you don't believe? Let me just ask this, right? Because then you could just say, "All right, John, you fell and hit your head." That's not what it says, right? You're telling me that Fauci did not walk back his initial statements about how effective this vaccine was going to be. He did not walk this back again and again and again. Right?
I'm not going to engage with a question like that because I don't even know if you know what he originally said.
Okay. All right. He didn't say anything, right? And
I'm not going to say he walked back something if I don't remember off the top of my head what he originally said, and you can't find the quote of what he originally said.
Wow. So but I'm saying that for the purposes of this discussion right here, you honestly think that Fauci, because you've never heard this before, that there was a walk back from the initial claim?
Oh, I've heard the claim from a lot of MAGA before.
Well, no, but I'm saying, but you yourself have never saw any documented evidence that there was at first a very robust claim about how effective this would be, and then it got walked back again and again. You've never seen any proof of that?
No.
Wow.
Are you going to provide the proof, or?
Wow. Yeah. Hold on. Just let me take a look.
Mm. Oh, let's read another super chat while he's gone.
Yeah, hang on. I'm actually going to go.
Oh, you're back. Welcome.
I found some stuff. So let me just pull it up on the computer though, because it's easy. I don't have to walk back and forth. Just give me a second.
All he wants is for you to concede your integrity and agree with him. True. All right,
let's see.
If this is so obvious, it shouldn't be that hard to find, right?
Yeah, but it's there. The articles are multifaceted. It's covering both masks and vaccines. I'm looking for. I gotta retarget the vaccine efficacy.
Okay, I'm sure. Finding a lot of statements where Fauci said, yeah, we knew that it had an effect at the beginning to reduce transmission rate, but what we didn't know at the time was that the durability of protection was relatively limited, and that, you know, we didn't expect it to be 100% effective. I'm finding a lot of stuff about that. That sounds pretty consistent with what was said for the last 5 years.
Okay.
Here's an article from 2020. This is let's read the transcript. This is from JN Learning. We can ask, so blah, 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 blah. Okay, so where's something about the vaccine? It's inconceivable that we were this successful because, you know, they made a vaccine for the disease in 10 months, which is like incredible. So So Fauci said again, in the exact same way that he did in the other interview, he said the primary endpoint upon which the 95% efficacy was determined was based on the prevention of clinically recognizable disease, not asymptomatic, not infection, symptomatic disease. The secondary endpoint was protection against severe disease requiring hospital intervention. It was also a secondary endpoint, though. It wasn't clearly whether we could reach it, but we're still looking at that. Does it protect against infection? So a typical scenario could be A, that someone is protected against infection, and certainly against infection, against clinically recognizable disease. But there's also a likely scenario where someone was protected against clinically recognizable disease, but they still have replication-competent virus in their nasopharynx. Hence, by definition, they are infected. The question is A, we don't know yet. Hopefully, data in a longer-term follow-up, more subsequent trials, will determine whether or not you have a significant inhibition of actual infection. The other thing that's even a little bit more complicated is that it is conceivable that you could be protected against clinically recognizable disease. You could, however, get infected, but the level of immune response that protected you from clinically recognizable disease would be enough to lower the titer of the virus in your nasopharynx such that you would not be infective. So you could be infected, but not have enough virus in your nasopharynx to transmit it. So we don't know the answer to those last two questions. A, does it protect against infection? And if you are infected, does it render the viral loads so low that you're not transmitting it to anyone? So this is a month after the vaccine comes out that he's saying, yeah, there's like some stuff that we do know that it prevents like or that it is really effective at preventing clinically recognizable disease. But we also don't know if it like will actually reduce transmission. We don't know if like what it will say against like if it actually protects against infection, period. It just seems like, yeah, it seems like Fauci was actually really honest about what we knew and what we didn't know.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem was the timeline, right? So you talk.
This was a month after the vaccine came out.
No, I understand that. I don't think anyone had an issue with him saying we have some questions about how effective it would be, right?
You said that you said that they were saying that they were telling us things that they didn't know to be true.
Well, that's yeah, I believe that.
And literally the first interview that he did, he was telling you exactly what we knew to be true and what we didn't know to be true.
Well, I believe Pfizer came out and said in a conflicting report that, you know, they didn't agree with saying how effective it would be, but we were talking about.
Okay, yeah, find me the conflicting report then, because every single time you've made a claim about, oh well, yeah, but this says, or Fauci said, or Pfizer said, you've never been able to find me a source that says that.
You yourself, well, everything in here says it's disputed, and you yourself are saying that he talked about in the beginning about how effective it would be, right? And that
against
changed.
Clinically recognizable disease.
But you're giving a reason for why it changed, right? An explanation for why.
I'm not suggesting it changed anywhere. When did I say that it changed? Fauci in December of 2021, or sorry, in December of 2020, Fauci said it's effective at preventing clinically recognizable disease, which is still true, by the way. And at the time, they didn't know whether it was effective at preventing infection, period, or about preventing transmission. They didn't know.
So you're saying
Where
that
did
when
he
it
lie?
came out, hold on, you're saying that when it came out, well, if you just put Fauci lied, like you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the quote about the timeline of how it changed. That's what I'm looking for. You can Google Fauci lie, and there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that comes up. That's not what we're looking for, though. I want it to be meaningful from when it would change from being
Yep.
highly effective that it degrades down lower. That's what I'm looking for specifically.
So where is the, like, suppose that he says that we know it's 95% effective at preventing clinically recognizable disease. Is that still true or not? Did he ever lie about that?
About saying that I'm sorry, that it was 95% effective in doing what?
At preventing clinically recognizable disease. Was that true or false?
That may be true.
Okay. Was it true or false that we didn't know whether it would prevent infection and transmission?
Well, it depends on when he said it, right? Because it would different.
This is in December of 2020.
Yeah. So
this is a month after the vaccine came out.
Right. So that may have been true at that time, but
okay. So a month after the vaccine came out, he didn't lie about anything. Are we in agreement on that?
So what I'm saying, that may have been the most true statement, but then how did it go from that then to assuring people that this would prevent the transmission of the disease?
Did Fauci ever say that?
That it would prevent?
Yeah, that it would prevent that it would prevent transmission. Did Fauci ever say that?
I don't know.
Or did you just hear clips from Fox quoting Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, who said something similar? Like it seems like you don't actually know if Fauci said any of these things.
Why? Yeah. First of all, it's not necessarily him; it's the administration. That's why I talked about earlier the frustration of the general public because.
Okay, but that's a politician, not a scientist. So it's the same issue with CNN. It's the same issue with quoting CNN or Fox or Newsmax.
Almost all the news outlets that are aligned with the left were touting this.
Again, are we talking about scientists or are we talking about news outlets?
No. You just said Fauci, and I said, well, it's really more the administration was the concern. But
and
Fauci,
the administration is not scientists.
Okay. But they touted it and they ran with it. Where did they get it from? Like,
who knows? But if Fauci didn't say it, why should we blame the scientists?
All right. All right.
So what he did say, so this was in February of 2021, Fauci said that there have been some studies that are pointing into a very favorable direction with regards to the COVID vaccine protecting you against transmission. While he said more conclusive research was still needed, the doctor pointed to 2 studies that were out in February of 2021. Taken together, they are some of the earliest evidence we have that even if vaccinated people do get sick with COVID-19 in what's called a breakthrough infection, the chances that they will then transmit their illness to others are far lower than if they had remained unvaccinated. So there were 2 studies that he was citing. Were those studies lying?
Well, here is on May 16th of 2021, Fauci said that vaccinated people become dead ends for the coronavirus. They're dead ends. So even though there are breakthrough infections with vaccinated people, almost always these people are asymptomatic and the level of virus is so low, it'll be extremely likely and not possible in effect, but very low likelihood that they would ever transmit, Fauci said.
Sorry, so he said not impossible, not possible.
5/16/21 in his overall.
Yeah, I'm looking at the interview from May 16th, 2021. So even though there are breakthrough infections with vaccinated people, almost always the people are asymptomatic and the level of virus is so low it makes it extremely unlikely, not impossible, but very, very low likelihood that they're going to transmit it. Whereas people who are getting infected, who are without symptoms, who are not vaccinated, generally the titer or the level of the virus, relatively speaking, is higher than in the vaccinated individuals. Is that true? Is that false?
Fauci added that vaccinated people essentially become dead ends for the virus to spread
So
within
I'm
their
looking at
community.
the transcript of the interview. That word, the word essentially doesn't pop up once.
But I'm just telling you. So the follow up to it is that Fauci added that the vaccine.
I have the direct interview. I'm looking at it right now. The whole paragraph is, and John, you said it very well. I could have said it better. It's absolutely the case, and that's the reason why we say when you get vaccinated, you not only protect your own health, but that of the family, but also you contribute to the community health by preventing the spread of the virus throughout the community. And in other words, you become a dead end to the virus. And when there are a lot of dead ends around, the virus is not going to go anywhere. And that's when you get to a point where you have markedly diminished the rate of infection in the community. And that's exactly the reason, and you said it very well, of why we encourage people and want people to get vaccinated. The more you get vaccinated, the safer the entire community is.
I think it's funny that you left out the part that says
I
that
literally read the word dead end.
Yeah. But do you see the part? Do you see where it says Fauci added that vaccinated people essentially become dead ends for the virus to spread within the
I just read
community?
you the entire paragraph from the interview that you are currently pulling quotes out of context for.
All right. Well, you're trying to be very specific about it, but just ironically, you didn't read the part.
I
which
read
is
the part where he said, and in other words, you become a dead end to the virus. And when there are a lot of dead ends around, the virus is not going to go anywhere. And that's when you get to a point that you have markedly diminished rate of infection in the community.
All right. So you don't think that
him saying that you become a dead end to the virus, if you interpret it literally, if you say dead end means that it's actually like a full stop, then yeah, that's incorrect. But in the exact same interview, he said that you still have a possibility, like literally like 2 questions earlier, he said that you still have a possibility of transmitting even if you're vaccinated. So all you had to do was listen to the whole interview and you'd be like, oh yeah, so like your probability of transmitting is low, but it's not 0.
Mhm. Obviously, right? And I'm just going to say this, ready? So obviously, when you say things like that, it is misleading, and I'm going to tell you why. Because the general
it's not
news
misleading if you listen to the whole damn interview.
Well, then maybe you then should be a consultant between Fauci and all of the news agencies, so you can clarify why they went out and
So
said
you
this.
can be mad at the news agencies if you want,
I'm not mad at
but
them at all.
Fauci didn't do anything here. He didn't do anything misleading.
Let's see. Hold on. All right, so let's see what this one says. Dr. Fauci admits COVID vaccines don't work overly well at stopping infection. July 13th of 2022.
All right, July 13th, 2022.
Dr. Anthony Fauci admits COVID vaccines don't work overly well at stopping infections.
All right, let's go pull up the actual, pull up the quote.
One of the things that is clear from the data is that even though vaccines, because of the high degree of transmittability of this virus, do not protect overly well against infection, they prevent quite well against severe disease, which you and I agreed on that's possible, and hospitalization. But this is from...
So let's keep reading. Hold on, let's keep reading. And I believe that's the reason why at my age, being vaccinated and boosted, even though it didn't protect me against infection, I feel confident that it made a major role in protecting me from progressing to severe disease. And that's very likely why I had a relatively mild course. So my message to people who seem confused because people who are vaccinated get infected, the answer is if you weren't vaccinated, the likelihood is that you would have had a more severe course than you did have when you were vaccinated.
Yeah,
and
again,
this was in July 13th of 2022. So this is 2 years, almost 2 years after the COVID vaccine came out. 5 strains later, with an additional year and a half worth of new data. Is it possible that the data has changed?
It's possible, but
because keep in mind, originally, Fauci said a month after the vaccine came out, Fauci said, yeah, we don't know if it protects against infection.
Right, but then there was some bold statements or more comprehensive statements.
And then he said 3 months later that it did protect against infection. Which, if you look at the COVID-19 alpha or whatever the first strain was, it actually did protect against infection for several months. But the duration of the vaccine and the efficacy of the vaccine after multiple strains did decrease. So he actually didn't lie at any point.
Well, no, you don't think that, because then you're having Pfizer people come out now and say that, yeah, they knew all this in advance, right? Like it was foreseeable that there would be different strains, right? All these different things. We shouldn't have been so bold, or no one should have been so bold, really, in talking about how
So you're telling me that there are people from several years later who said, oh yeah, we definitely knew this in advance. We should have been able to predict the future. It seems like another pivot.
But it
So
seems
to be clear, when Fauci, so in February, or sorry, when was it? March of 2021, so 4 months after the vaccine came out, was Fauci lying when he said, we have evidence that it does reduce the risk of infection? Was he lying when he said that it reduced the risk of infection significantly?
It depends at what level he was saying. Like, what degree was he saying at that time? To any degree, or at like
no? I mean, he was saying that there's a significant reduction in infection amongst vaccinated people, of transmission rather.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe it's significant. And
okay.
Again, you have to.
Yeah. So he wasn't lying then. He wasn't lying a month after the COVID vaccine came out, and he wasn't lying 2 years after the COVID vaccine came out. At none of these points was he lying. The message changed because the data changed, because COVID changed.
Yep. But again, the whole thing is, well, let me ask you a question then. Would there be any level of medical expertise that if they said this was foreseeable and we shouldn't have made claims so bold, that you would say, yeah, that's a noteworthy individual that's made that statement, and that would be concerning to me, that we probably should have known
that it should have been foreseeable? You can say, yeah, we should have been able to foresee this, but we didn't. We didn't predict the future. I'm sorry. I don't know what you want.
No, what I wanted was transparency, and I think that there was a lot.
He was transparent. All of the things that he said when he said them were true, with the exception of the mask thing in like March of 2020.
Yeah. And what about exposure to the virus? That was another thing that really
big pivot
too. It's like, hold on. No, it's
just so hold on. Like we are way in the weeds for the main topic being that MAGA doesn't trust scientists, and that the Trump administration takes anti-science actions. You've been trying to justify why that's the case, but it just seems like all you're doing is justifying why that's the case. You're not actually disagreeing that it is the case.
What I said is that I don't think that there's anything wrong with being critical, and I think that there's a reason that people were critical was because the narratives changed. So, now, what you're saying is,
do you think it's justified from any of this? Do you think it's justified that like half of Republicans think that scientists are not honest?
Well, hold on a moment, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of contextual reference, right? So the idea is that people on the right, MAGA, right, have this distrust for government, okay, and your argument to it, right, is that, well, it's not necessarily Fauci, right, for these reasons, because at the time this was true, and at the time this changed, right? But here's the thing: if the general population, and I would say that most do not watch Fox News, right? Most are watching
Fox is
news.
The most watched news channel in the country, by the way.
What's the most popular, right?
It's the most watched. Has the most concurrent viewers.
Well, that's sad.
I agree.
But if you and even in your car, right? In my car, I flip, right? And by the way, I do listen to NPR, I listen to CNN, I listen to MSNBC, I listen to all of them to get a snippet of what's going on, right? And here's the thing. When you hear these mainstream news sources sort of on a regular basis, with the exception of Fox, right? Because I think Fox didn't do it quite as much. But when they're going on there making these bold claims, and then when you have Cuomo on there, Chris Cuomo talking about,
Cool. What does this have to do with scientists?
No, but here's my point, though. Here's my point. My point is that when the general public is hearing these things, they're hearing these things, and right, the normal person would deduce that, when these pundits are on there, right, and these people that are on the television are disseminating this information to the general public, that it's coming from somewhere. Did they just make it up? Like, did Rachel Maddow make that stuff up out of nowhere?
So what you're telling me is that they decided to trust pundits more than scientists. So they think that the pundits are telling the truth about what the scientists told them, and the scientists are therefore the ones that are lying. You see how that's delusional, right?
Hold on, but hold on. This is just the way of our society, right? People listen to who's talking to them, right? People listen to the news.
Well, but wait a minute.
And it wasn't like Fauci was coming out.
People who are mad, people who are anti-science about like this particular thing, already didn't trust CNN, MSNBC, right? So why are they saying that, CNN and MSNBC reported this, therefore that means the scientists must have been lying? Like, no, they already don't trust them. Why are you now trusting that they're reporting the information accurately?
They talked about Joe Rogan was taking horse dewormer, and then they changed the look of his face, and they changed the color on it, right? And then
you're just complaining about the media now. This has nothing to do with science. which is exactly my
I
point. You're taking your distrust of the media and you're transferring it on scientists for absolutely no reason, which is, you know, hallmark anti-science behavior.
No, it's not. It's not, because what I'm saying is if most people get their information from the news, right? It wasn't like Anthony Fauci was giving a daily briefing on this stuff, right? It didn't happen.
Okay, so then they should be mad at the news. That I don't understand why this means that they should think that half of all, or why half of Republicans should think that scientists aren't honest. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I said what they do is they tend to distrust, question, or critically think what's being pushed at the general public, and unfortunately, that comes from the news. It's coming from the news.
Okay, but it has nothing to do with scientists.
They're not pulling it out of the sky. Well, because scientists, generally speaking, are aligned with the left, and that's not even a debate.
Oh, so we don't trust scientists because scientists are generally liberal?
No, but I'm saying when the liberal media is putting it out there, and there's an alignment between people in science and the general left media, it's a direct conduit to that information being disseminated. Then, and that's an issue for people, right? It's not like it's coming out.
Okay, so you agree that people are anti-science. You're just saying that, oh, it's justified because the news lied about it.
Well, let me ask you a question. How did you feel when they said that about Joe Rogan and they discolored his face to make it look like he was sicker?
I wasn't paying attention. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch any of this stuff.
But here's my point. If you want to really understand why there's this tenor out there. Okay,
look, all you're doing right now is you're just agreeing with the premise and justifying it. That's all.
No.
You're saying they are anti-science. Here's why.
Well, hold on. No. And first of all, being a critical thinker and saying I'm going to look at something with an open
Being a
mind
critical thinker is not thinking that half of all science, or is not half of your base thinking that scientists are dishonest. That's not being a critical thinker.
Well, no.
Being a critical thinker would be examining the source that the news media is actually quoting and analyzing the source for yourself. And you'd come to the conclusion that masks are generally effective. The COVID vaccine was generally effective. You'd come to those conclusions once you analyze the actual data yourself. Being a critical thinker is not like, the news lied to me, I could see it with my own eyes, therefore scientists are dishonest. That's not being a critical thinker. That's being a MAGA sheep.
Would you think that our science community is more aligned with the left or the right?
Oh, yes. So scientists generally are more liberal than conservative, and that's because reality has a left-wing bias.
That was good. Thank you for that. I like that. No, and therein lies the problem, right? So it's a more complicated subject than just, oh, this is the fact and this is it.
Well, no, I mean, you can just go look at the data yourself. Like, you can just do it. You can go look at the studies and come to the conclusion, and you'd come to the same conclusion that I do, namely that masks were a good idea, and that the vaccine was generally effective, right?
Yeah. No, but I said most.
Like, you'd come to that conclusion, which is, you know, what scientists have been screaming about for the last 5 years.
Most Americans don't do that, though. Most Americans
aren't being critical thinkers. You're right.
Yeah, but that's everyone. That's left and right? So we listen.
Right, but if you want to be correct most of the time without doing a whole bunch of research, the right thing to do will be to trust the experts who have done the research. So if you want to be right about, I don't know, about deforestation, you would go ask a botanist, or you would go ask, you know, an environmental scientist, right? If you want to be right about, you know, the health of the marine ecosystem, you would go ask a marine biologist, right? You wouldn't ask Fox News, you wouldn't ask MSNBC, you would just go listen to what a marine biologist tells you. And in fact, if you wanted to be right even more often, what you would do is you would ask a bunch of marine biologists and then compile their answers and come to a conclusion based off of what the majority of them say. That's, if you don't want to go and read the scientific literature yourself, which you're welcome to do, if you don't want to do that because it takes a lot of time, just trust the people who have done that. Don't trust the media, don't trust the politicians, just go trust the scientists. And that's what Republicans are not doing.
No, I understand that. But again, and I'm just going to say, because you understand, I think we probably don't disagree on this. Most people don't go out and do scientific research.
Yeah, so then just listen to what the scientists say.
No, but I'm saying most people have busy lives. So what they do is they listen to the 20, 30 minutes a day that they're listening to the news, or however long they listen to it, and they take that as their general facts, right? They try to trust the news, right? And that's what they do. Right?
Yeah, they're trusting the news. They're not they're trusting talking heads. They're not trusting the scientists, which is what they should be doing.
I understand, but most people don't, right? And here's the thing: the reason why there's
more specifically, most MAGA don't. Actually, generally speaking, liberals tend to do that more.
Right, and ironically, they're aligned with the left. But listen,
yeah, because it turns out the people who examine the world around us critically with rigorous scientific methods come to conclusions that align with liberal conclusions more often. That like climate change is real, that vaccines are effective, that evolution is real, you know, all of these things.
No, we didn't have a disagreement on that. I think that's pretty obvious.
But those are left wing. Those are considered left wing views, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know anyone that. I mean, listen, me personally, again, it's my own personal experience. I don't know anyone that doesn't believe that we didn't evolve. Right? I don't know.
Literally 2 people before you, the person came on and said, "Yeah, I don't think that we evolved from non-human ancestors."
Well, I'm just saying. Again, it's my experience and the people that I know and surround myself with. I don't.
But you're doing it again. You're doing the thing where you're like, "Oh well, it's my experience." The data says otherwise.
Well, you're telling me that your experience. Well, because
no. So I was giving you an example. I can point you to the data. Overwhelmingly, there is a significant difference in the amount of people who think that evolution happened amongst liberals and conservatives. For example, there's a significant difference amongst people who think that climate change is real amongst liberals and conservatives. Like this is well studied.
Well, the climate thing I've heard, right? So I've heard that before, and I believe that there is probably a political line for what people believe is climate change versus global warming. I believe I've heard that whole argument, you know, before, and there probably are pretty, you know, clear dividing lines between who believes that we're affecting our society and our climate, and people who don't believe that we are. I believe that. That's obvious. I don't think we wouldn't have a disagreement on that.
Okay, so to be clear, we agree that generally conservatives don't align with the consensus of scientists, or are significantly less likely to align with the consensus amongst scientists.
I think it depends on what it is specifically, right? I think it depends on what it is. And honestly,
basically all aspects of science, like physics. If we're talking about like, you know, the Big Bang, like, yeah, conservatives are way less likely to believe in the Big Bang than liberals are. If we're talking about like biology, like evolution, yeah, conservatives way less likely to believe in evolution than liberals are. If we're talking about medicine, yeah, conservatives way less likely to think that vaccines are like effective than liberals are. Like, this is basically every branch of science. I mean, I can't think of anything in chemistry that's, well, chemistry, you know, might be related to the climate, but like, you know, if we're talking about like environmental science, yeah, liberals way more likely to believe the environmental scientists than conservatives are. Like, it's basically all of them.
But again, it's a lot of it, I think, is from, and again, you're going to say that there's a differentiation between what's being pushed out by the media and what the actual scientists are saying. But did they not talk about, you know, the world is going to end in 10 years and you had
nope, scientists didn't say that.
Hold on, I'm just telling you. And again, this is my point. That's why I prefaced it by saying that you have these, you know, political folks that are out there talking about how the world's going to end in 10 years and all this has to happen. And, you know, Al Gore putting up pictures of ice caps disappearing. And then what you'll end up finding out is it's not quite as intense as they talked about, right? And then that's what leads people to start to think more critically of what's being disseminated, is what I'm saying, right? Because, you know,
if you have an issue with politicians lying, look, you are in good company. I have an issue with politicians lying too. The point is that because I have that issue, I actually like to fund the people who are doing the actual research to figure out what's true and what's false. I actually think that it's important to fund climate scientists, because climate scientists are the ones who are going to tell us what's right and what's wrong and what's actually happening to our planet. I like funding biologists who are going to study how, you know, viruses evolve and stuff, because that will be helpful to human well-being. But the right wing of America right now is really uninterested in funding scientific research, and in fact is interested in defunding it. Hence, anti-science.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you this. So I did appreciate the conversation. You definitely brought up some good points, some stuff I'm going to look up. And you make a great point about not listening to political pundits. So I do appreciate that. And great conversation, and love to come back on again sometime.
Thanks for being here, JP. Take care. All right. All things considered, he did end up, he was fairly polite. So I do appreciate that. Let's read some super chats and then we'll bring up another guest. From Aaron with the $10, science does not make assertions of absolute certainty. It makes inferences to the best possible explanation. MAGA, stop pretending. Yeah, fair point. From Gretchen with the $5, goal was never to stop infection. It was to bend the curve and not overwhelm hospitals, remember? Also, what difference at this point does it make? Fair point. From Nobody on Fire with the $10, thank you for your efforts arguing with lazy bullshit. Buy a coffee, Blitz. I will. From Fear's Interaction with the $10, Blitz laying down hard truths, and I'm here for it. Look, I do my best, okay? And from Double Down with the $10, actually, if you wanted to learn about plants, you would ask a plantologist. By the way, that's why I was giggling earlier. If you aren't a longtime watcher, there's a good old meme from ages ago, like months ago, about a guy who couldn't name, or what was it? I asked him to name one natural science, an example of a natural science, and he said plantology. Anyway, it was very funny. John Grieger, how's it going?
Oh, hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Are you MAGA?
I am Mac, and we've spoken before. You know me. I just decided to use my real last name.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait, John Jackson. No, I'm not going to talk to you. We've spoken so many times. I have so many people in the guest box.
Okay.
Later, John.
Okay, bye-bye. Later.
John Jackson's a good guy. He's also Peter's, like, he's a pleasant guy, I should say. I don't know his morals and his ethics. He seems like a fine guy. But he is a Peterson fan, which, you know, I don't know. Make that what you will. Not to spoil the well, if you will. Papa Trey, how's it going?
Hello. I just had a question because do you have how can you control F on a phone?
There's a search function. It's not literally Control F, but like if you press the 3 dots, then there'll be like a find in page, and then you can type something in there.
Noted. Appreciate it. That's all.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
The more you know. Let's talk to Matthew. Matthew, how's it going?
Not bad. How you been?
I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA now? Have you always been MAGA?
You've known that I'm fairly neutral on the political realm, but this is my topic.
Wait, MAGA is your topic? MAGA being anti-science is your topic?
So because of the way how I align, I typically have people that are part of the MAGA group align with me. So, but you know, I don't know if you know how I feel about making choices and selecting sides.
No. Do you think that MAGA is anti-science?
I would definitely agree with that.
Oh, you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not all
Okay.
of them because you can't group
Sure.
individuals as all, but definitely would see that.
Okay.
There's
Thanks for being here, Matthew. He agrees. Let's talk to Debate Doc. Let's talk to JC. By the way, if you guys like the live, make sure to like the live. JC, how's it going?
Good. Blitz, I'm a subscriber, so I'm not gonna be here long. Just quickly, I was here for that whole plantology debate.
Oh, you were?
Where you like look up like it was a what was it? It was like a one website where they taught like a PhD in plantology. It was hilarious. I
Yeah,
just happened to
so
be
if
here
I
when
remember
that
correctly,
was.
what happened is that there was like a translation of a website from India that talked about how
Yeah.
they have a degree in plantology at their university or something.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, yeah,
Thank you.
there's a long lore there, but thanks for being here, JC.
Yes, that was funny. So, all right.
All right, let's bring up another guest. Oh, Debate Doc is back. Debate Doc, how's it going?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA?
No, you had me up one other time. I'm an actual doctor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no. But if you're not MAGA, then we
Changed my name.
can't. Why'd you
I
change
know,
your name?
man. Because I was tired of having my real name.
That's fair.
My full ass government name there.
Yeah,
But if you Google
it's your
COVID
social security
vaccine
number.
yeah, COVID vaccine reduced transmission PubMed. If you just Google that, the
Mhm.
top result is effective COVID-19 vaccination on the SARS-CoV-2 transmission among social and household close contacts, a cohort study. It's from March of 2023, and it did demonstrate reduced transmission with the
Who's it by?
vaccine. It is by
Martinez Buzz?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, yeah, okay, found it. Okay, that's good
So
to know.
like there is compelling evidence that it does reduce transmission. It obviously doesn't eliminate it. You can get, infected with the vaccine. But for all these people saying like, oh, it does nothing for transmission, that's untrue.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good point to bring up.
That was it.
All right, take care.
You too.
John Jackson with the $2. Thank you. The results of the study he just quoted were thrown out due to faulty testing. Was this retracted? It doesn't look like it was retracted. Oh, we're actually out of guests now, except Matthew. But Matthew doesn't disagree. So the host is losing all of his credibility looking for colors. That's not a science. Looking for colors? What do you mean looking for colors? Who's looking for colors? I don't even know what that means. It has been openly refuted by every immunologist. Oh, well, that's an interesting claim. I'll just look this up. Maybe it's true. Maybe it has been. Refuted. I haven't seen any claims to the contrary. I'm not finding anything about this. I want to debate science, not MAGA. Well, the topic is that MAGA is anti-science, so that's the topic. Pretty sure Fauci is Dr. Death incarnate. Okay, let's bring up status 1776. That's a good idea. Status 1776. You are you MAGA?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions really quick?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Just to get a feel for where you are. So, on the one hand, do you think that climate change is mainly caused by humans?
No, and I don't even think we have the capability to even measure what they're claiming is causing these issues.
Okay. Do you think that vaccines are generally safe and effective? The ones that we give to infants and like babies.
At this point, though, I don't really know, man.
So like the ones that we give to like infants, like the MMR vaccine.
I mean, yeah, like the rubella and all those types of vaccines. Yeah, I would say the majority of the vaccines that haven't been messed with for like decades, I would say I would trust those. But anything that's been touched these last few years, I would probably stay away from.
Okay, and do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
What do you mean, like monkeys? Is what you're saying?
From other great apes.
Yeah, I assume that's where we come from.
Okay, great. And would you say that MAGA is anti-science, pro-science, or somewhere in the middle?
Probably somewhere in the middle. You can't really make that statement without speaking to everyone, and that's pretty much impossible. So I would say
so just as a quick question, would you say that like, what would be a good example for this? Let's say
you're probably not going to like my position because I don't really.
Well, no, I mean the point is we talk about political groups all the time. Like, would you say that that liberals are generally pro-choice?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not all liberals. So would you say that liberals are actually in the middle about abortion?
From what the media shows, no, they're pretty much pro-choice, but that's
not all liberals. Though, so shouldn't we not be able to generalize an entire group of people?
Not really, because it's just not realistic. I mean, you could, but it's
so then we shouldn't say that liberals we shouldn't say that liberals are pro-choice then, because they're not all pro-choice.
I mean, we shouldn't even talk about it if that's the case. But here we are. I mean,
right. But the point is you agreed that liberals are generally pro-choice.
I just don't like to generalize people. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem realistic to me.
But you just did
if we are going to generalize,
that you generalize liberals to being pro-choice.
They are pro-choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so in that same sense, I'm saying that MAGA is anti-science.
I'm not anti-science. I like to.
Okay, but there are liberals who are pro-life.
Where they lead, whether I disagree with them or not.
I mean, well, so to be clear, I think the jury is still out on whether or not you're anti-science. But regarding the MAGA base as a whole, what would you make then of the fact that the MAGA base is significantly less likely to think that scientists are honest and are significantly less likely to believe in the scientific consensus on major topics than, say, liberals are?
Are you asking me why they feel that way?
Well, if they're not anti-science, why would that be the case?
If they are not anti-science?
Right.
Because they've been lied to for the last decades. I mean, like nonstop.
So what would you say that they? So if they think that
years have turned out to be lies, man.
So if they think that the science is fake and they think that scientists are dishonest, what would you call that?
And that was another thing. Like, what scientists? The only people that were put in front of me talking about COVID was.
I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about scientists in general. I have polling data that says that
from any scientists. That's what I'm saying. It was only Fauci saying all
so that's really strange then. Why, like 48% of Republicans think that scientists are dishonest.
I don't know what to tell you in that situation,
Yeah,
but
that's
for
weird,
me,
isn't
it
it?
depends on where the scientists are coming from. If it's like a foreign scientist working on
Just scientists in
COVID
general.
related issues on his own in his own country and not being paid by the left or the oligarchy that
Just
funds the
scientists in
left,
general.
then I would probably believe him. But if he was an American and they're saying the same
Do you
shit
think that
that
scientists in
all
general?
these
So I
news
can just pull
outlets
up the
are saying, then I'm
I can
probably
just
not
pull
going
up
to
the
believe
polling
it.
data for you if you want.
I mean, that's fine. The polling data is cool, but I don't agree with everything that everyone else does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out why this is the case. So the question was, which of the following statements describes most research scientists well? And under the heading of honest, only 52% of Republicans or people who lean Republican said that honest describes most research scientists well.
Well, that's a good rating, isn't it? That's over half of the people who
52%?
believe the scientists.
Okay,
That's over half.
put it another way. Nearly half of Republicans think that scientists are not honest. That's really
And like I
bad.
said, they have a good reason behind it. They've been
Oh, do
lied
they?
to the last decade.
Do they?
I was one of them.
Just to be clear, what do you think anti-science is?
The last couple of years, like it's not even.
What do you think it mean? What do you think it would mean to be anti-science?
If you can't see it, then you're probably being paid, or
What would you think it means to be anti-science?
I'm sorry, I lost you, bro. I lost connection.
Yeah, I know. What do you think what do you think it means to be anti-science?
That you don't agree with what the current consensus is on a certain scientific matter. I mean,
Yeah, okay. So would you then say that MAGA and more generally Republicans are anti-science because they are significantly less likely to agree with scientific consensus on scientific matters?
well, from the polling data, I could say that 48% of them are.
Well, no.
less likely
So
to
I'm not. That's how much they think scientists are honest. The question is about the scientific, the claims of the science, and what we find is that amongst Republicans in general, compared to liberals or compared to independents, Republicans are significantly less likely to believe a whole slew of scientific consensuses. Significantly less likely to believe that climate change is real, significantly less likely to believe that vaccines are like a good thing, that they're effective, significantly less likely to believe in evolution, even controlling for religion, significantly less likely to believe that there's a neurophysiological distinction between sex and gender, all sorts of scientific consensuses.
All those things that you were just speaking of are connected to what I was just talking about. Like we've been lied to about.
What have we been lied to? What have we been lied to about evolution?
About all of those issues.
What have we been lied to about evolution?
Like the left.
What have we been lied to about evolution?
I don't know, man.
So then why'd you say it?
We haven't been around long enough to make those decisions or even know. Like before we knew the Earth was around, everyone.
Are you just saying that evolutionary biologists, they just don't know anything?
Now we know it's a globe. Like the science isn't always 100% correct. Like that's.
So you're doing the anti-science right now, by the way.
From what we know, history isn't always.
By the way, Status, you're very, very quiet. I don't know why you just got very, very quiet, but you are very, very quiet.
So you can't hear me at all?
I can hear you slightly, but the audience is having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, my bad. Well, like I was trying to say,
Is there a way to move your mic closer to your mouth?
It's right in front of my face right now.
Are you driving?
No, I'm not.
Your mic is right. Are you wearing headphones?
Standing outside,
Hold on. Are you wearing headphones?
No.
You're not wearing headphones, and your mic is right in front of your face, like you're not wearing like an earpiece or anything.
How is that? Is that better?
No, it's still really quiet.
I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's my phone, I guess.
It was louder when you joined. Can you go back to that?
I could back out and rejoin. That might help.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Let me do that.
All right, let's bring it back up. Yeah, I think I hear the road too. Oh, I don't know if he knows how to join. Yeah, I assumed it's his Bluetooth connected to his car. Yeah. Could be. But I don't know if he knows how to rejoin anyway. All right, well, let's bring on another guest. D, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great, glad to hear it.
How you doing?
Are you? I'm doing all right. Are you MAGA?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mind if I ask you 3 quick questions?
Sure.
Do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to children and infants are generally safe and effective?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Absolutely. From non-human ancestors?
Non-human
Absolutely.
ancestors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like humans came from like some
Yes.
non-human great ape or something like this.
Yes, I believe in evolution.
Okay, great. And would you say that MAGA is like pro-science, is neutral, is anti-science? What's your take here?
I believe they follow pretty much. I don't think there's any difference between Republicans and liberals, to be honest with you, when it comes to the science.
So would you say that Democrats are pro-science, anti-science, or somewhere in the middle?
I think they're both somewhere. I think they're both pro-science.
Okay. So I would agree that liberals are generally fairly pro-science. It's interesting that you think that Republicans and MAGA more specifically are generally pro-science too. Would you say that if you were generally pro-science, you would cut NASA's science directorate funding in half?
I don't know. I don't have the details about why that's happening, so I can't comment on it.
Well, I mean, like,
I don't think it's a good idea.
If you're pro-science, then there wouldn't be like a
agree with
reason
it.
why to do it, right?
I don't know if it's. I don't know if science has anything to do with it.
Well,
Right?
they're cutting the
decision to cut
NASA
the
science
funding.
directorate,
It
right?
might not be
That's the science directorate.
right, but it might not. If I understand that, but it might not have anything to do with science, right? It might be a political.
Well, yeah, they're
reason
politically
why they're-
cutting our investments in science.
Okay, then what
right?
does that have to do with science?
Well, no. So, I mean,
What does that have to do with
if
science?
a
How are you
political
tying the
party,
two together?
yeah. So I'll explain. If a political party was anti-science, I would expect them to cut funding to scientific research. And lo and behold, that's what Trump's proposed budget does. And it's not just NASA.
Okay, so what makes you think? What makes you think they're anti-science? What did they do, or what policies would
I
suggest
just told you one.
to you that they're anti-science?
So I just told you one. In the same
Yeah,
in the
but
same budget proposal,
don't
they
know-
also
we-
I can give you more examples. In the same
You
budget
don't know
proposal,
why.
in the same budget proposal, they also proposed cuts to the National Science Foundation by somewhere between 30 and 70%, depending on which directorate you're talking about. So the National Science Foundation provides federal grants to scientific research. That's its like only job. Like mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, and like geology and things like they provide federal grants to researchers to do those, and those
For what-
budgets were cut
By what
between 30 and 70%.
What department? Yeah,
The
but that's
the National
pretty
Science Foundation
broad.
is an
What
independent
specific-
agency.
Okay.
They're not like underneath like the DoD or any, like they're an independent thing. They're an independent agency
Well,
run by
if
the federal
you've got
government.
money to, and what exactly are they responsible for?
They provide federal grants to scientific researchers across the country, in basically all of the
Okay,
hard sciences.
So it depends on. Okay, but I guess it depends on what the funding is for 4, right?
Mathematics,
So
physics,
if it's
chemistry,
garbage,
research, or
if it's
chemistry, biology,
pseudoscience
geology.
that doesn't offer anything, any
No,
benefits, maybe it's a good idea to
but
cut the funding for it.
you're confused. They're not just canceling some grants and allowing other grants through. They just cut the amount of money that they're allowed to spend on grants.
Okay.
They're not personally
Maybe they found some
investigating.
waste. I don't know. I don't have enough details to comment.
Okay, so they also
Like you're just making broad statements.
no,
right?
but these are policies, right? They also slashed the CDC and the NIH, National Institute for Health, and the Center for Disease Control. These are more scientific institutions that the Trump administration has proposed enormous cuts for.
I don't have a problem with cutting the funding for the CDC.
Okay, so this is all to say, if you had a political party that was anti-science, what you'd expect them to do is you would expect them to just cut funding for all of the scientific institutions, which is what they've done, or rather what they've proposed. It hasn't passed yet, but what else would you expect an anti-science party to do?
I really, to be honest with you, when it comes to an anti-science party, you haven't given me enough to make.
What would you expect an anti-science party to
come
do?
to a conclusion why they're doing it?
What would you expect an
I never
anti-science party
really
to do?
gave it much.
Okay, well, think about it now. What would you expect an anti-science party to
cut
do?
funding
Yeah.
for science.
And what
To
would you
cut
expect
funding
a-
for science?
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And what would you expect a
But there's
pro-science
not
party to
enough
do?
information for me to go off of to know why.
And
right?
what would you
I'm sure
expect
it's a lot
what-
more nuanced than
and
that.
what would you expect a pro-science party to do?
I would need more detail.
What would you
I
expect a
would
pro-science party to do?
Need more information.
What would you expect a pro-science party to do?
It all depends. It all depends on the institution and what they stand for, and
Would you expect a
what
pro-science party to?
exactly the research is in.
So
It's not that simple, and you know that as well.
I mean,
as
it's
I do.
fairly
just not that
straightforward. Like, this is basic
black
Bayesian
and
reasoning.
white. It's pretty. It's a gray area. It all depends
Sorry.
on what
So
the science.
a pro-science party, a party that was interested in furthering scientific research, would pass bills
There's a
that
lot
would.
of pseudoscience out
Hey
there
D,
right now.
hey D,
There
can
is
you
a
let me
lot
finish
of
my thought?
pseudoscience.
Hey D,
So
can you
if
let me
they're
finish my? I'm
cutting-
gonna mute
if they're
you.
cutting funding.
So, D, one would expect a pro-science party to pass bills that would increase funding to scientific research. If that's the if being pro-science means you're interested in furthering scientific research, then you would expect a pro-science party to provide resources to further scientific research, i.e., to increase funding. An anti-science party, meaning that they want to prevent or want to reduce scientific research, you would expect them to take actions that would reduce the amount of scientific research that can be done, i.e., cutting funding. So, given that you think that the Republican Party is pro-science, one would expect that they would increase funding for scientific research, but actually they're doing the opposite, which should lead you to believe that they are in fact anti-science.
It all depends on the research and whether the research is beneficial or not.
So
it's not that black and white.
It is pretty black and white. If you're interested in research broadly, you would
No, it's
fund
not.
research
I
broadly.
disagree.
So D,
You're not
is
giving
it your view then that
any
it's
details.
actually just a coincidence that none of our institutions were actually doing beneficial research, and rather it just happens to be the case that the NIH, that the NIH, the CDC, the NSF, and NASA, they were all doing non-beneficial research, and therefore, even though they're pro-science, they want to cut that scientific research. Is that your view?
If they're not producing anything of any value, what's the point?
So,
but I don't know.
Do you have any grounds to? So I mean, just to be clear, just to be clear, the NASA Science Directorate. Do you think that the James Webb Space Telescope was producing valuable science?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was funded by the NASA Science Directorate, right? So do you think that the NASA Science Directorate is not doing valuable science and therefore worthy of a 50% cut?
I don't have enough information to comment.
It seems like you do. You just don't want to admit that it's anti-science.
I would have to look at the details.
I can
to
give
come
you the
to a
details of the
conclusion.
specific projects that they cut, but the administration didn't actually provide an explanation as to why they were cutting funding. They're just saying, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this. That's all I said. They didn't actually say, you know, why
Okay,
the
if
funding is
that's-
being
if
cut.
that's the case, if that's the case, then it's wrong.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
But I
that
don't
is
know if
that is the
I'm
MAGA
not
administration.
I'm not agreeing with you. I'm not saying that is the case.
That is the Trump
I just don't have
administration.
enough information to go off of.
So if it's the case that the
But
Trump
what I
administration didn't
can-
actually provide any explanation as to
What do you
why they're cutting the
consider
funding.
science?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if they didn't give any explanation,
Then you think, would that make them
it,
anti-science?
it's not fair. I totally agree.
Would that make them anti-science?
No, I wouldn't
Oh.
go that far to call them
What? So okay,
anti-science
what would they
because
need
they
to
cut the
do for you to
funding
consider them
because
anti-science?
We don't know the reason.
What would they need to do
I
for you
would
to
have
consider
to
them
know the
anti-science?
reason.
What would they need to do for you to consider them anti-science? What actions would they need to take for you to consider them anti-science?
To cut funding for something that is actually producing scientific work.
But they did do that.
Okay,
At
if
least they
that's the
proposed it. It's
case,
still
but
being
I don't
debated.
know
But
in what field?
I can
I
give
don't
you an
know in
explicit
what
example.
field
Do
they-
you want
they
to
cut the funding.
do you want an explicit example? This is
But
this
because
is
there's not
a
enough
project.
information on
The information
because
exists. I can tell you
there's
it
not-
if you
there's
want.
not enough details. Okay. go ahead.
So
Sure.
do you think that like generally like space telescopes are worthwhile? Like are good science?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
So there's a space telescope called the Chandra X-ray Observatory. It's already in space. It's been in space since the late 90s, I think 1998. So normal telescopes, they see visible light. The James Webb Space Telescope sees infrared light. The Chandra X-ray Observatory sees X-ray light. That's what it does. That's what it was built for. It was launched in 1998. It's an American project. And it's been doing really good science for the last 25 years or so. People still use that data today, the data that it takes. Now, there are no current better X-ray telescopes that exist. It is still the highest resolution X-ray telescope in existence. And according to Trump's recently proposed NASA funding cut, they're shutting the telescope down. They're completely killing the project.
Okay. I don't know why.
Well, you
Like
asked
I
for
said, I
example.
don't-
So to be clear, you
You're
said
giving
that
an
in
example,
order.
but you don't know why.
So
We don't know why.
I was
they're
just
doing it.
I was just doing what you asked.
Is it a
D.
Is there a good?
D, I was
Okay,
just
and I
doing what you
appreciate it,
asked.
thank you.
What
I
you
appreciate
asked
it.
was
You
you would
did,
say
and
that
I
they're
appreciate it.
anti-science. You would say that they're anti-science if they cut something that was doing good science, and their proposal cuts something that does good science. So it
Not
sounds like, according to your
exactly, 'cause I would have to have.
Oh, but that's not what you said before. Before you
No,
said
you're
that if
putting
they
words
cut
in my mouth,
something.
and I keep telling you, and I'm going to keep telling you this.
Hold on.
Not
Should we just
until
replay
I know
the
specifics.
Should we just replay the Should we just replay the tape? We can replay the tape.
I hear what you're saying, but what if you can hear me, I'm just saying until
Hold
I
on.
know
So
the
I'm
specifics.
gonna mute you really quick.
of why he did it. I'm just going to keep.
In research broadly, you would fund research broadly.
I-
Hold on. They didn't actually say, why
Okay,
the
if
funding is
that's-
being
if
cut.
That's the case. If that's the case, then it's wrong.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
But I
that
don't
is
know
that
if
is the
I'm
MAGA
not-
administration.
I'm not agreeing with you.
The case that the Trump Sorry?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if they didn't give any explanation,
Then you think
to call them
what, so,
anti-
to consider them anti-science? What actions would they need to take for you to consider them anti-science?
to cut funding for something that is actually producing scientific work.
They did do that. All right. So did you hear that, D? So you said I asked you what would they have to do in order to be considered anti-science, and you said to cut funding that is actually doing scientific work.
For a good reason.
You didn't say that.
For a good reason. Well, I'm telling you now, for a good reason.
What would be a good reason?
And because I don't know what the reason is, I don't know if it's anti-science or not.
You're giving them an awful lot
That's
of
all
leeway.
I'm saying.
It just so D.
I am,
look,
absolutely.
Look, D. Think critically here.
I would do this thing to somebody that's pro-science. Yeah.
D. Think critically here. If it were the case that they cut,
I am thinking critically.
Please let me finish. If it were the case that they cut one project,
I don't think it's going to go anywhere due to the fact that.
So if it were the case that they cut one project, then you might not want to call them anti-science, because maybe there's a good reason why they cut just one project, right? Like maybe like, you know, that project was, maybe they were getting ready to schedule another project that would supersede it, whatever it might be. But they didn't just cut one project. They slashed budgets by 50% across the board for basically all of our scientific institutions. And this means cutting tons of good science. So like, really, use that noodle that you have. If it was just one project, maybe they had a good reason. Do they really have a good reason to cut across the board? You're unmuted now.
There's a possibility that it's not all good science, right? I don't know the specifics.
But I just gave you examples
so
of
maybe
two pieces of science that are good science that they're
you
cutting.
did. I don't know if.
So why are they cutting it? It's good science. So why are they cutting it?
You can't tell me, and I don't have that information. You can't expect me to know or give you an answer.
If they were anti-science,
I have no idea.
If they were anti-science and they were merely doing it because they didn't want to spend money on scientific research, what do you think that they would say?
I don't think it's. To be honest with you, I don't think it's because they don't want to spend money on research.
I'm asking you a
just
hypothetical.
think that they're trying to get rid of the garbage
I'm asking you a
pseudoscience.
hypothetical. I'm asking you a hypothetical. If it were because they just didn't want to spend money on scientific research.
I don't like hypotheticals.
I'm sure you don't. Now,
We're
said
speculating, bro. We're speculating.
I'm trying to get
That's
you
all
to...
we're doing.
Okay, so you can't actually engage with the conversation. Look, the point is that you said that maybe they're just trying to cut the crap. Well, I gave you an example of like a project that they cut that wasn't crap. So what's the what is the alternative explanation?
We still don't know why they.
What? Okay, give me potential explanations.
The funding,
Speculate for
right?
me. Speculate for me.
I'm giving it to you. What I'm telling you is
the reason?
Because we don't have the facts, or we don't have the facts, or the reason why.
Speculate. I'm asking you to speculate on what the reason might be. Speculate
I don't
on what the
want
reason
to
might be.
speculate. There could be 1,000 possibilities why.
Okay.
And
Can you give me one possibility? Can you give me one possibility why?
Right. The only conclusion I can come to is that it wasn't producing anything of value.
Okay, well, the Chandra X-ray Observatory was producing science of value,
they
and you agreed to
decided that it wasn't worth the money.
Right, but the
or
Chandra
maybe
X-ray
it
Observatory
just cost too much money.
The Chandra X-ray Observatory was producing science of value. You agreed to that, and I can tell you how much it cost. It cost about $19 million a year to
That's something
fund.
I would have to look into.
It costs
that
about
is the
$19
case,
million
that's something
per
I would
year
have
to
to look
fund.
into.
Now, do you know how much $19 million is as far as the federal budget
That's
is
nothing.
concerned?
That's a drop in a bucket.
Right, and so
Yeah,
they cut it.
nothing.
So it's not because it
Nothing.
was too expensive. It's not because it was doing crap science, because, again, it was the best X-ray observatory in the world, right? It was the only one with that
If
resolution.
that is the case, then then I totally agree. It's totally unfair. There's
And
no
would you
explanation.
say that cutting that
and
is
maybe there
anti-science?
is. But if it was just for that reason,
what other reasons could there be?
I can't find a good explanation to explain why they would cut that funding for that particular project.
Okay, so you can't think of any other reasons why they would cut it?
I can't think of any reason why they would cut.
Well, I gave you one
the
possible
funding
reason
for that particular project.
I gave you one possible reason. They just don't want to fund scientific research.
But to
They
call
think it's
it
not valuable.
anti-science, I wouldn't go that far.
Well, if
you haven't
if a political
demonstrated
party
that
was
it
not interested,
the reason was because
if
they're
a political
they're
party was
anti-science.
not interested in funding research, I would call them anti-science.
You go right ahead. I disagree.
What do you mean
got to
when
give
you
me
say
more
anti-science?
than that to
Then
call
what do
them
you mean?
anti-science?
To be clear, earlier, and I still have it pulled up. Earlier, you said it's anti-science if
Producing scientific work.
for them anti-science.
The reason.
What would they need to do for you to consider them anti-science? What actions would they need to take for you to consider them anti-science?
To cut funding for something that is actually producing scientific work.
So your statement was that if they cut something that's actually producing scientific work, then you would consider them anti-science. And now you're walking that back because you don't want to consider your own party anti-science.
I'm saying I don't have enough information to come to a conclusive decision on why they would do that. That's all I'm saying. I don't have enough information.
There actually is plenty of information. So
That's even to say if it's anti-science, it's just not. You're not giving me enough.
I mean, we can reasonably
right. Just because they're making cuts.
I'm giving
just
you the
because they're making cuts doesn't make them anti-science.
So D here's
doesn't
something
make them
interesting.
anti-science.
You want to know something interesting? They're not actually defunding NASA entirely. They're only cutting the NASA Science Directorate. So NASA basically has two big kind of directorates and then a bunch of small ones. About 30% of their funding is for science, about 30% is for exploration, and then the rest is for a whole bunch of other things.
So it's NASA.
Specific...
So what they're doing is they're cutting the funding for climate change.
No, they're cutting
anything
the
to do with climate change. I believe they're cutting the funding for that.
They're not. They're cutting the I've looked at a breakdown of how they're cutting it. I've looked at the breakdown of how they're cutting it. They're cutting basically anything that's astrophysics. And actually, let me just pull it up if you want. I'll just pull up the actual NASA technical supplement. Here we go. In the science, so there's two basically big chunks of NASA. There's the exploration chunk, which they're actually increasing funding for, and there's the science chunk, which they're cutting in half. There's also like space operations and space technology. These are basically staying the same. So under the science header, there's Earth science, planetary science, astrophysics, heliophysics, and biological and physical sciences. Every single one of them, actually, interestingly enough, except the planetary science division, is being cut by at least 50%. The planetary science division is only being cut by 25%. So they're cutting the Earth science, which is, like earthquakes and shit. They're cutting astrophysics by 70%. They're cutting heliophysics, that's, studying the sun, by half, and they're cutting biological and physical sciences by 75%. So it's not just climate science that they're cutting. They're cutting across the board.
It doesn't mean they're anti-science. That's all I have to say.
So, they're not anti-science.
It doesn't prove that they're anti-science.
Even though they're doing anti-science things, they're definitely not anti-science.
You're just jumping to that conclusion because they're cutting all these programs. They have to be anti-science.
So D, it's an inference.
Doesn't work for me. It's not enough information for me, bro.
Okay, I understand that you can't speak ill of Dear Leader, but it's plenty for everybody else. So thanks for being here, D. All right, we have some super chats. Then let's bring up another guest. From Nate the Great with the $2, you're an amazing person. I love you. I appreciate that. From Double Down with the $5, for a man who voted for a cult who swore they were going to be transparent, he sure keeps going back to it. I don't know. They haven't told us the why. Fair point. And from Anarchist with the $2, do you have a set schedule for MAGA debates? No, I kind of just do them when I feel like it. All right, let's bring up laptop. And by the way, make sure to like the live, share it out if you have friends that you want to share it with. This is a great way to get more people in here so we can have interesting conversations. Laptop, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you MAGA?
Yeah, I'm probably MAGA adjacent. I would probably consider myself MAGA.
Did you vote for Trump?
I did not.
Oh.
I haven't voted.
How old are you?
I'm 25.
Oh, okay. But do you agree with most of what Trump's doing?
I'm more identified with MAGA as the populist movement. Not
okay. Okay, fine. So just a few quick questions and then we can get to the meat. So do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
I probably am not qualified enough to say yes or no. If my gut instinct, I'd probably say no.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we administer to, infants and children are generally safe and effective?
Me personally, just from the research I've done, no.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
No, I believe we were created.
Okay. Appreciate it. So would you, and then final question, would you say that MAGA is pro-science, neutral, or anti-science?
I'd say MAGA as the movement's probably more neutral because I don't know how far up the totem pole they would put science as far as issues that they're trying to, that they care about enough to make a big deal about. I'd say science is probably lower on the totem pole. Not saying that it's not important, but
So, do you think that generally the MAGA base is interested in funding scientific research?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just heard your conversation with the last guy, so I don't know. Like I said, if their priorities, if science, where would you put science on as a priority for the nation? And I would say wherever that's ranked, I mean, I think you should reflect it with your budget. So if it's like, lopsided, then you're kind of not reflecting what the people want to do with the budget. That's what I would say.
So I mean, like currently our science budget is like maybe 1%, probably less, as a percentage of our budget. Oh no, I'm sorry. What was the proposed 2026 budget? $1 trillion, and the NASA science budget is what? Now it's $4 billion. So that's 0.4% is NASA's budget. Do you think that NASA science budget, do you think that it is worth more or less than 0.4%?
Of the national budget?
Yeah. Do you think it should be?
Well, I just don't think that. I think all the cut and everything is. I don't agree with the cuts and stuff because we have a Federal Reserve that just prints fake money anyway. So it's like the whole idea that we need to make a bunch of cuts for some deficit. It's a joke when it's just we have a Federal Reserve that illegally prints money anyway, which is a form of taxation. You know what I mean?
In your ideal world, what percentage of your tax dollar would go to scientific research?
What percent of my tax dollar would go to scientific research?
Mm-hmm. If you had to put a number to it.
I guess I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of tough to just spew out because, like I said, I have a question for you. Where would you rank science as far as priorities for, let's say, a nation? Because you're talking about national budgets.
Yeah.
So where would you rank science? I mean, if it was like 1 or 2, then yeah, you would want to
So I would put your citizens welfare, probably at number 1. So this would be things like healthcare. This would be things like housing. This would be things like kind of the things that help keep people have a good quality of life. And then I would probably put, I guess depending on the nation and depending on the situation, I guess I would probably put things like infrastructure at number 2. And then I'd probably put scientific research at number 3.
So, like defense, you wouldn't.
I don't think that you need to be spending more on defense than you do on scientific research. And by the way, under scientific research, I'm including the way that we generate scientists. So funding education, for example.
Right. No, I'm with it. And can I be completely transparent with you?
Sure.
I'm more curious about not the first 3 questions, but particularly the last one that you ask people at the beginning. What are the purpose of those? And I'm just curious on why you're asking people that.
So these are questions that in the last 30 years or so have been this subject of political discourse pretty significantly. So evolution, vaccines, and climate change have been the subject of political discourse. And they're also things for which the scientific consensus is completely uniform. The vast majority of scientists agree on what's true about those various questions. And so I use this as a way to gauge whether somebody is themselves aligned with the scientific consensus or if they're not.
So can I push back on you a little bit on that claim? Because and that's what I thought. And climate change is whatever. I'm not well versed enough in climate change. The vaccine stuff, I tend to more lean towards what RFK is more about. How
that's a mistake.
I don't want. You don't need a kid giving Hep B, but I don't really care. That's just I've done enough research into vaccines to where I have that position, and I'm not. I don't want to debate about it.
What about polio, right? Like the polio vaccine, like we don't see polio in the U.S. anymore. That's because of the polio vaccine, right?
I don't want to debate about vaccines.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I was talking about evolution.
Sure.
I could because I don't think it's, and I don't know if you've come across any arguments that kind of have pushed back on your stance of evolution or that we were created, but to say that it's an anti-science argument, I think is disingenuous when there's actually a lot of pretty credible scientists that would hold to intelligent design.
So,
like,
to be clear,
are you familiar with like a Stephen Myers or like?
So I am. So just two quick questions. When you say intelligent design, do you mean? So some people will say intelligent design for the first organism. Some people will say that everything was created as it currently is with very slight changes. So which form of intelligent design are you referring to?
I think we were created as we were.
Okay, so
then micro evolution and adaptation occur.
So if you were so just give me a ballpark. If you were
that's my personal belief.
No, I understand. If you were to and ballpark this answer for me. If you were to grab 100 biologists, stick them in a room, and then ask them, do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors? What do you think? What proportion of them do you think would say yes?
I think it depends on what their worldview is.
Just 100 random biologists picked up from somewhere in the United States.
I don't know. I'd have to talk to more biologists, I guess. But
I mean, we could probably find that information. I would bet you it would be more than 95.
Okay, but does that necessarily mean that it's true? Because
well, it means that it is the
really
scientific consensus. It means that it's the scientific consensus, right?
Okay, but how many times has there been a scientific consensus to where it turned out to be wrong?
I
mean, that's the point of science, right? You have to weigh.
So I'm trying to think of an example of that being the case. I don't know if I can think of
science all the time.
I don't know if I can think of that being the case. Like in the last 100 years, I can't really think of any examples.
I'm less concerned about what specific, like general census that scientists believe, and I'm more concerned about like the actual arguments on why I believe that there's a mind behind why
so
we're
laptop
created.
I understand that. Are you a biologist?
No.
Okay, I'm not a biologist either, and I don't think either of us are particularly well equipped, because neither of us are biologists, are particularly well equipped to actually analyze the data that's produced by biologists, right?
Well, I'm a scientist. I dabble in science.
What's
so
your field of expertise?
Probably more apologetics and theology.
So, would you say that theology is a science?
Well, it falls under philosophy, I would say.
Okay, so you
philosophy.
Said you were a
like
scientist.
Metaphysics.
So, like, what branch of science would you say that you're an expert in?
Are you a scientist?
Yeah.
Okay, what branch of science are you?
Physics. I have a PhD in physics, and I work as a physics researcher.
Oh, well, then this is right up your alley, then.
Well, but so my point is that neither of us are biologists. Neither of us have any formal training in biology. Neither of us can, almost certainly, neither of us can adequately and correctly analyze the biological research. So, it just like probabilistically, I would rather trust 100 biologists on the matter than trust myself. Right. It just seems more likely to be right if I trust 100 biologists on something about biology than to trust me, somebody who doesn't know anything about biology, or knows only as much as you learn in high school and maybe a bit more.
I mean, that's sort of. I mean, but you're smart enough to where you can do enough research to where you can make a decision on whether you believe in it or not.
I mean, like, do you know?
There's always two sides to an argument.
Like, do you know what occurrence rates of endogenous retroviruses in non-human primates are? Like, do you know how to analyze that and how to figure that out? Like, I mean, like, that's like basic stuff for a biologist. But like, if you don't know what that is, you're not going to be able to analyze any data about endogenous retroviruses.
Yeah, but I know enough about a topic to where if a biologist was here that doesn't believe that there's a mind behind life, that I'm pretty sure I can walk them down into at least understanding my argument as why I believe that, and then I don't think he would walk over me.
Well, okay, so do you know what so you don't know what an endogenous retrovirus is?
endogenous retrovirus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a no. That's a no. You don't know what it is. It's a type of genetic. It's a genetic imprint on our genes, and all mammals have these. Where at some point in the distant past, one of our ancestors was infected by a retrovirus. The way that retroviruses work is they insert their DNA into the DNA of the host, and then the DNA's host cells reproduce and create more of the virus. But sometimes it doesn't work perfectly, and instead the host just passes down to their descendants a little chunk of DNA that has the retrovirus's DNA in it. And we can look, and so endogenous retroviruses, the amount of endogenous retroviruses that you share with somebody is a really good way of determining how closely related you are to somebody. Because if you're more distantly related, then that means that you will share fewer common ancestors, meaning that you are less likely to share endogenous retroviruses. But if say somebody's your brother, then they're far more likely to share, like, you know, a quarter of the endogenous retroviruses that your father had that your mother didn't have, for example. And so we can actually use these endogenous retroviruses, and we can compare them with other animals, and we find that humans share a huge number, almost all of our endogenous retroviruses with, for example, chimpanzees.
Right, and I would just account that to, there's a lot of explanatory power that comes with, but that doesn't, that you can't say from a scientific perspective that there's ever been an actual species change or like a kingdom change.
Okay, so the way that we do science,
that because of
the way that we do science is we make a prediction and then we test that prediction, right? So one of the predictions that was made, and this was actually made like a long time ago, before we even knew that this was a thing, was that there would be, this was made after we learned about endogenous retroviruses, of course, but before we compared them between chimpanzees and humans, that there would be similarities based on evolutionary theory, that there would be huge overlap between us and our most recent common ancestor evolutionarily. And if you go and check, that prediction comes true. So this is evidence that we do share a common ancestor with that. So that's how we do science. And like, there's tons of other pieces of evidence like this.
Well, there's science from intelligent design point of view too, because they used to think in DNA there was a bunch of junk sequences that had no function, and the hypothesis that Stephen Myers and other people in that camp made was that there's no way it's junk DNA, because they thought that it had to be a function because of their thesis of intelligent design. And then that actually turned out to be true. So there was actual hypothesis.
I actually don't think it's. I still think that that's not true. Actually, no. No, I think that there. So there are. Yeah. Okay. So there are still non-coding pieces of DNA, right?
Right, but there's a lot less than what there used to be.
But if there's any, then that means that the claim is that the prediction is false, right?
No, I mean that was just one of the hypotheses, but that's not why I believe that.
Well, no, but the prediction is false. If there's any.
That's not what I'm trying to say. If I said that, that's not what I meant. I don't know the exact hypothesis, but it was something along those lines. I'm not saying it's exactly like. I'd have to see them.
But look, so the point is what you're. I mean, look, if you want to say that there's evidence for intelligence,
but there's hypotheses. People can put hypotheses for and stuff to get from intelligent design. It's not just evolution where science is being done.
Yeah, I know. You wanted to talk about evolution.
No, but no. Your point was that just because there's these retroviruses and that there's strong points, you said that's because it's science and that's like the purpose of science. Well, there's also
that's the method of science, right?
Right. There's
the method of science is you make a prediction. If the prediction comes true, that's evidence. If the prediction doesn't come true, then that's evidence against your view.
And it's happening with intelligent design as well. That's my point.
So. Look, my point is that maybe you think that actually evolution is false, but by saying I know better than almost every single biologist, I think that that's like both super hubristic and not very Christian at all. And also is just like, it's just anti-scientific, right?
Well, no, I just go along. I've just heard Stephen Myers' points and people like Alistair McGrath, and like John Lennox, and I kind of more fall in line with their interpretation of the data, because
Right, but what about like the
and
what about like the 500,000 biologists who think that who provide better explanations for more pieces of data that favors evolution? Why is it that you have these three people?
Because
John Lennox
they
isn't
don't-
even a
they don't
biologist,
address-
by the way.
yeah, he's a mathematician.
Right. So
that's it. I mean, it's right up the alley of.
well, no, it's just
what
not
we're
relevant
talking
for
about.
it's just not relevant for the
It's
evolutionary
super
question,
relevant
right?
for evolution.
Not
It's super
really.
relevant for evolution.
I don't trust a mathematician's ability to properly dissect the data for evolution in the same way I wouldn't expect a biologist's ability to trust and dissect
Well, this is my issue
mathematical
with-
proof.
This is my issue with most biologists, is that they don't address the fact that DNA is stored information, and the fact that
I think that all biologists would agree on that, actually.
exactly. So in stored information, it's a functionally a code, because there's the 4 nucleotides, and it's like a 6.8 billion sequence.
Sure.
So it's functionally code. I would challenge you, because anywhere else in nature, you walk up on the beach and you see your name written in the sand, you immediately infer
Okay, but
higher up that
DNA
there
is
was a
not your name
mind
written in the
behind
sand, right?
But
we know the
it's
process
code.
by which DNA can change, and the process by which it can evolve, the way that it can become more and more efficient at doing whatever it was doing. We know the way that this can happen naturally. You don't need a designer to make it happen, right?
But you don't know how it happens naturally, because
Sure we do.
it hasn't been mimicked. It hasn't been. No, you haven't created
Evol-
DNA in a lab
to be
through
clear,
primordial soup. It doesn't happen.
That's not a question of evolution. That's a question of abiogenesis. We're talking about evolution.
But evolution, when you're talking about evolution, you're ultimately, it's coming down to the function of mutation acting through adaptation and natural selection.
Yep.
Or sexual
and other
selection.
forms of selection, yeah.
Right. So if I'm taking evolution for what it's saying, the conclusions that you draw from that is that we were single-celled organisms at one point, and we all evolved from that.
To be clear, hold on. To be clear, that's not a direct implication of evolution. That happens to be what the data implies, because
neo-Darwinism. Yeah.
No, that's not even neo-Darwinism. The data implies that because there are proteins in common between all living organisms, which suggests that there was a single common ancestor rather than multiple common ancestors.
Right. So I just see, whenever you see stored information, there's no place that you see it in the world where there wasn't a mind behind it.
Right. So your argument for why 500, I don't know how many biologists there are, hundreds of thousands of biologists are wrong, is you have incredulity about how DNA could become more complex from a less complex thing. And that's an anti-scientific view.
No, there's a worldview distinction, because I think that their worldview actually blocks them from coming to the logical conclusion that there was a mind.
The vast majority, so like 30 or 40% of biologists think that there is like a god. It's smaller than like the general population, but like 30 or 40%. And even those biologists think that evolution happened. So this isn't a worldview issue.
I mean, but you're talking about what biologists think, not the actual argument. So I guess I don't know.
But look, neither you nor I are biologists. Neither you nor I are correctly or are well equipped to evaluate the data, to evaluate the arguments. Neither you nor I have the information base that we need.
How is that scientific? You're just going with what people think?
I'm going with what the experts think. That is what scientists do, by the way. That is what we do in science. Because we recognize that not every person can be an expert on everything. Not every person can run all of the experiments. So me, I'm a theorist, right? I do like theoretical stuff in physics. So if I want to better understand, say, how such and such an experiment was run, I wouldn't I would just go ask one of my experimental physicist colleagues to explain this experiment to me, because that's actually their field explicitly, and it's not mine. That's what we do all the time.
You could use the same argument. If I was Stephen Meyer right now, you could say the same argument to me, and then you would just discredit everything I said just because the majority of science doesn't agree.
If you were Stephen Meyer?
Yeah, right now.
If you were Stephen Meyer, I would say, yeah. So why are you in disagreement with 95% or more of all biologists? What makes it seem reasonable that you are more likely to be correct than the vast majority of biologists? That's what I would say.
I would say biology doesn't. Most biologists don't take into account that if DNA is stored information and the act of evolution, the baseline of it is it's off of mutations through adaptation, natural selection, and sexual selection, or whatever. But the baseline, the base mechanism is random mutations, right?
Yeah.
So if DNA is code, which it is, it's its own language, it's stored information. I hold to the belief that, like, if you talk to any coder for any software, if you are randomly to change any one part of a code, you are more likely to devolve the function of that code rather than actually add function to it. So I mean,
well, just to be clear, that's just not the case. There are evolutionary algorithms that can write really efficient code.
Yeah, but that's not. You're with a mind behind their creation.
No. The point is the evolutionary algorithm mimics natural selection.
Yeah, but there was a mind behind this evolutionary algorithm. You're making my point for me.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, it turns out computers are made by people, but you're trying to use a computer analogy, so I have to refer back to the computer analogy. Otherwise, I would just say, yeah, we can see this happening with DNA in the real world. I mean, there are mutations that are beneficial that we've seen develop in humans. Like humans are producing less or more frequently. Humans are not having wisdom teeth. We also know that the lactate, the gene that produces lactate is like a novel or rather continues to produce lactate into adulthood, is a novel mutation that only exists in a certain percentage of the world population. That was an example of DNA accumulating new function via mutation. Lactase,
yeah,
thank you, not lactate.
That would be a form of gaining function. But
yes, this is an example of gaining function, the lactase persistence gene.
But how could you say that it's more likely to gain function when there's so much complexity at the very base of cells? The actual organelles inside of cells are so complex that any little variation within those, it actually destroys the whole function of like organs.
So
if
the point is that disadvantageous mutations lead to not passing on those mutations. Advantageous mutations get passed on. So yeah, if there's a mutation that kills that kills your mitochondria or something, that infant who's born with that mutation will die, and they won't pass on that gene. Somebody who has a mutation that lets them digest milk for their entire life will be more likely to be able to survive if they only have access to cows, and so they'll pass on their genes they'll be more likely to pass on their genes.
Right. So if that was true over billions of years, my statement is that it would be more likely that life would not have passed on, because you are more likely to devolve a function if it's a random mutation rather than add a function that actually helps.
You have some organism, and then let's say it produces 10 offspring. Let's say 5 have negative mutations, 1 has a positive mutation, and 4 don't have any mutations at all. Well, the 5 negative mutations, they might die out. And then the 4 neutral ones will just continue doing what they were doing. And then the one with the positive mutation will proliferate. What's the issue?
I don't think you're understanding my point.
I don't think that you understand evolution well enough to actually have this conversation.
No, I do, because
if you did, you would have known what endogenous retroviruses were.
Math behind it would.
Have you ever had a conversation with a biologist about this?
But you're talking about one organism producing 10 different offspring. When you get down to the meat and potatoes of it at the beginning, if there's one, or if you're talking about an organism splitting off into 2 different organisms, and that's the common ancestry, okay?
Yep.
The likelihood that those split offs would have the
vast majority of the time there will be no
mutations,
or like mutations that are neutral, right?
Okay, but when there is mutations, I'm saying that it's way.
But there's
more
not a
likely
mutation in the whole population. That's the thing. There won't be a mutation in the whole population. So you end up with, you have one initial organism, and for the first the first 5 generations, so you end up with 2 to the 5, which is 2, 4, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. You have 32 offspring, and then one of them gets a mutation randomly. And maybe that mutation is negative, maybe it's positive, but the other ones will not have a mutation, they'll just keep going. Now, occasionally, one of the mutations that it will get will be positive, and that will be passed down, and the ones that are negative won't be passed down. This is super basic. Have you ever talked to a biologist about this stuff?
Yes, I have. It's just, I think the actual numbers that we're talking about is so astronomical when you actually do the math that it's actually...
What math have you done?
There's no way... Well, people like Hugh Ross that have actually done the math, and when he talks
but
about,
like what math did they do?
I'm saying the probability of evolution to actually.
No, I know, but what was the math? Did you understand it? Like what math did they do?
I'm not that well versed in it, but I just know that from what I've consumed, it's not just
so you're just trusting somebody.
I'm saying,
so why don't you trust the vast majority of the biologists then?
Because it's not convincing. I don't see anywhere else in nature where there's stored information that wasn't from a mind.
So to be clear, the one person is convincing when you don't understand how they came to their conclusion.
There's many people.
The person who did the math, this Hugh Ross guy.
You haven't given me any names.
Do you want me to give you a list of names of biologists who agree with evolution? Do you want me to give... I mean, like, I assumed I didn't need to because I think that you agree that the vast majority of biologists think that evolution happened, right? You probably agree with that. So I don't think I need to give you names to make that point.
Yeah, but to say that it's I'm saying to say that it's an anti-science claim, to say that you believe that we were created by a mind, it's not an anti-science claim.
I mean, it is. It is. Unless you are the one analyzing the data, unless you understand how the data was analyzed and how these calculations were done, you're just trusting against the consensus, which is anti-scientific, yeah.
I don't understand how that's anti-science when you know that in history there's been consensus of scientists that were wrong.
So your argument is science has been wrong in the past, therefore I'm going to trust the minority. Again, not understanding their work, I'm just going to trust them.
I'm using my faculties.
But you don't know, you just admitted that you didn't understand their analysis.
I said I don't know the numbers off the top of my head when it comes to the.
Can you explain the calculation that he did?
I'm making the argument that there is more. You are more likely to devolve and lose function per random mutation than you are to gain function.
This is actually really funny. I bet for every one creationist, quote unquote, scientist, and many of them are not biologists. I bet you for every one, I could give you somebody who's named Steve, who's a biologist, who disagrees with them.
Oh, there's a lot of people who disagree with them. That's not my point.
And they would all be named Steve.
But just because there's a disagreement in science doesn't mean that it's anti-science. It's extremely scientific. I think it's disingenuous to say that because somebody believes in creation that they're anti-science.
What is true is if you are a scientist in your field and you're doing the science and you disagree with your colleagues, that can be totally scientific. But if you are not in that field and you are preferentially believing a minority of a minority that goes against the widespread consensus of an entire field, then yeah, you're being anti-scientific.
How many of those biologists are naturalists?
Like 40%?
Probably more than 40%.
No, at least according to like a Pew Research poll, like 40 or maybe 45% of biologists are naturalists, like 30% are like 25% are agnostic, and then the rest are believers in a god.
Right. So if I'm a theist, I believe in Christianity. Mm-hmm. I reject naturalism because there's metaphysical differences that I can't come to grips with naturalism. Why would I believe 40% of biologists that are also naturalists
believe the other 60%? With me? Believe the other 60% who also think that evolution happened.
But what? But why do I have to pick? I just arbitrarily have to pick it just because there's a majority.
if you're trying to do good epistemology, which we should all be wanting to do, if you are not well informed on a subject, which neither you nor I are with regards to biology, with regards to evolutionary biology in particular, with regards to, like not genealogy, genetics and all of these things, the most epistemologically sound thing or epistemically sound thing to do is to believe the people who did do that work. More specifically, believe the consensus of the people who did do that work, because any one person can be wrong.
Science.
It's significantly
Where
less
do you get
likely
that
for
from?
many people to be wrong. This is epistemology.
But where scientifically do you get that conclusion that just because something is the
This is how we do
if it's
science,
true?
actually. This is like one of the things that we do in science. If you are not an expert in something and you're trying to inform your own scientific research, you go and you find the experts. Because we recognize that science is about specialization. So no one person can be an expert in everything.
But that's you're not getting. If I reject naturalism, and there's an entire group of biologists that are naturalists, and I fundamentally disagree with their worldview because I can't come to grips with their conclusions about how the world
that's irrelevant.
Works.
It's irrelevant because there are non-naturalists who also disagree with you.
Yeah, but you're talking about majority census. If 40%, that takes out 40%.
That's not the majority. No, 40% is not the majority.
Okay, so what's the majority that's not?
The majority
40%?
will be non-naturalists. If 40% are naturalists, then the majority will be non-naturalists.
But it's not mutually exclusive. You can be
naturalist and non-naturalist just to be clear, naturalist and non-naturalist. Naturalist and non-naturalist is mutually exclusive.
I know that, but you gave the point that just because somebody identifies as a naturalist, the second statistic you gave was agnostic.
Yeah, so
when you brought up the poll 40%,
the poll broke it down.
And naturalist.
So the poll broke it down to believe in a god, believe in some kind of higher power, and then not believe in any of that. That was how the poll broke it down. I summarized it. No, it didn't even say naturalist, but you can probably infer that the atheists are naturalists, but maybe not. In fact, the percentage is possibly even smaller.
And most agnostics are naturalists.
If you believe in a higher power, I don't think you can be a naturalist. Because a higher power is something higher than the natural world, right?
Most agnostics are closer to atheism than they are to actual theism.
These are people who say that they believe in a higher power, but not in a personal god. I can pull up the poll for you if you want.
Those are deists.
Well, maybe they wouldn't call themselves that. Maybe they believe in a spirit or something. But I can pull up the poll for you if you want. We can look at it specifically.
But you're acting like that's not logical when you're coming at me saying it's anti-science to disagree with someone on one point when I know that their worldview, because of their worldview, they've automatically dispelled a scientific.
But that's not most. That's not most biologists.
Their worldview.
That's not most biologists. So so I'm just gonna pull it up really quick. So in biological and medical science, 32% believe in God, 19% don't believe in God but do believe in a universal spirit or higher power, which is not naturalism, by the way, and 41% don't believe in either.
Right. So if I see that they don't believe in the same worldview as me as far as baseline, whether a God exists or not, and I've come to the personal belief that I believe a God exists.
So you're letting your metaphysical worldview that God exists inform on your interpretation of the scientific data, which is anti-scientific.
But naturalists do the same thing. So
no, but the thing is even the non-naturalists, even the non-naturalists, the 32% who do believe in God, share your worldview, the vast majority of them still think that evolution is real.
Oh, I don't think that you necessarily have to believe that evolution is false to believe that we were created.
Humans evolved from non-human ancestors.
I just disagree with it. Yeah, I just disagree
32%.
With it. It's perfectly you can be a Christian and believe that evolution is true. I personally disagree.
So these are people who are not naturalists.
I can't come to grips with.
People who believe in God are not naturalists, right?
Yeah, and I've
And
heard
so
arguments
so
from him
so
that they're
your
not
argument that
convincing
like,
to me.
oh, a lot of them are naturalists, that's irrelevant, because even the vast majority of naturalist or of non-naturalist biologists and medical scientists think that evolution happened to humans.
Yeah, but that you're still going based off of the actual debate is not. This isn't even a debate. It's not even about the actual point.
Well, the point is
you're
that
talking about
you are
what you're
rejecting the
going
scientific consensus in a field that you're not an expert in, and that I'm positing is an anti-scientific worldview. Because the way that we come to understanding in the scientific process is we take experts in the field who do the fundamental research, who come to the conclusions, and then we listen to those experts. That's how we learn that's how we learn as a society. That's how we've done science since, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, but there's no way saying that that's anti-science. Is you're not
Rejecting a
making
scientific
any
consensus
argument on
seems
why-
pretty anti-science to me. I don't know what else you would call it, especially if you're not an expert.
Yeah, but okay, so anybody within that field, you would say that does not go with evolution, you would say that they're anti-science?
No, I wouldn't.
Genuinely?
No, I wouldn't. That's the
So
point.
how?
How? Because they actually
how is it different from me?
understand. They actually understand the field and understand the research and can analyze it and can come to a perhaps wrong conclusion. But it's not anti-scientific if they're the ones performing the research.
So if you're saying, so if it's a wrong, how do you know it's a wrong conclusion?
I'm saying
You're
it may or may
assuming
not
that it's
be.
a wrong conclusion.
Whether or not it is, the point is if they're actually using the scientific process to evaluate various pieces of data and synthesize them into a hypothesis and then run experiments, whatever. If they're actually doing that, they're doing science.
This is a hypothesis I ran. Where
Okay.
in nature do you find stored information?
That's a question,
that
not a
didn't come from
hypothesis.
mind?
That's a question, not a hypothesis.
That's my hypothesis.
Hypotheses aren't questions.
There is.
Do you know what a hypothesis is?
Yeah, this is my hypothesis. There isn't stored information in nature that didn't come from a mind.
Okay, now what experiment would you run to check that?
That you can look in nature if there's any stored information. Where did it come from? Usually, it comes from a mind.
Sometimes. I mean, but the point in contention is that we don't know. We don't know about the about DNA. That's the point. That's the whole point in contention. So you can't just look at DNA and say, oh well, this couldn't have come from a mind if this is something in nature. Or this could have come from a mind because it's in nature. It might be the case that it didn't come from a mind. So you actually need an experiment that you can do to check. Your argument is just look at the trees, just look around you. Like it's not an experiment. You're not trying to do science here. You're doing incredulity.
Well, I was more interested in actually debating about what you thought. I mean,
well, then you should go talk to a biologist.
Yeah, I thought you were more interested in like debating the actual topics, not.
I'm happy to debate my own
whether or
field of
not-
expertise. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in biology. I know probably a bit more than your average Joe, because I'm deep in the debate sphere. But
Well, I mean, you kind of.
I'm not an expert
you keep
here.
Trying to. You more like made it about dunking on me when I was more. I just wanted to be like, there are credible people that hold to there being a mind.
And
behind
if they're
creation,
doing
and
the
that-
experiments, then they're not being anti-science. But you believing them without understanding what they're doing is anti-science.
But how? I don't get that.
I've already explained how, like 3 times now.
All right. Well, I apologize for making it about just the questions and less about MAGA and stuff. But I don't think it's fair to people to put them in that camp. But
Put people in the anti-science camp when they disagree with scientific consensus, and they're not scientists themselves. I think that's fair. I think that's like a good definition of the word.
I don't see how that's anti-science. I think you're drawing that conclusion arbitrarily. I don't see how that's anti-science.
I'm sorry you feel that way. But I'm gonna let you go, laptop. But thanks for being here.
Oh, this was fun, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Take care. Okay, right. So it is noon. I am going to end the live stream here. Oh, I should go over super chats before I do anything. Yeah, we got a $2 super chat from Ra Raspada. love your content, but can't stand these MAGAs. That's fair. It is a patience thing. Patience is a virtue. You know what they say. I'm going to end the live here because I want to go get some coffee, eat some lunch because I'm hungry and I have a headache. And I didn't hydrate at all. I'm sorry to Grimlock for that. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow, hopefully, we're going to be doing a Flat Earth debate with a large Flat Earth Discord server. And so it will be me on the stage, and then they'll bring up people, and we'll be doing debates, and it'll be a whole thing. Anyway, remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, follow, all of these things. And if you want to join the Discord, if you want to be part of the community, if you want to ask questions, get notifications about when I'm live, when I'm sending out videos, join the Discord server. It's in the link tree in my bio on TikTok. It's in the description on YouTube. I'll see you there. Take care. Oh, what time tomorrow? Oh, it'll be the same time as my normal live streams. Around 9 a.m. Pacific time. Take care.